I'm a real tough kid, I can handle my shit. They said fake it, gotta fake it till you make it, and I did.
I'm just a terrible person, I guess.
Lights, camera, bitch. Even when you wanna die. Breaking down, I hit the floor. All the pieces of me shattered as the crowd was chanting more. With a broken heart.
Who's afraid of little old me?
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah Raitt, the Raging Tomato, bringing to you live Throwdown Thursday number 822 or something like that. I don't know. I feel like there's been so many of them and they've all gone so well. But the one that I've been waiting for the most for a very, very long time, I've got Rob, and I always say Noir, like Noir. How am I saying it? How should it be said?
It's nor, like the
Nor.
conjunction and or for nor yet.
Nor.
I used to try to use that before I met my wife. I tried to use that as a pickup line all the time. I was like, yeah, my last name's like the conjunction. It worked 0 times, but
Yeah,
it sounds like NOR. That's how it's
I couldn't
pronounced.
imagine a dude walking up and talking to me and be like, yeah, I'm Rob Noor. Like, you know, the conjunction.
Yeah,
Junction,
Yeah.
what's your function?
It worked out though. I met my wife because I had such a lack of game that I didn't like get scooped up before that. So it worked out in the end, you know.
Somebody said for me to check my mic. It could very well that
You might be on the wrong mic, yeah. There we go. That's much better.
Better. Thank you for the mic check note to those in the chat. Thank you and welcome. Rob, we're finally turning the other direction. Usually, or at least lately, I've had nothing but lefty oriented Throwdown Thursdays, and I'm happy to switch over and go the other direction. Your statement is all criticisms of Trump by the Democrats and media should be laughed at and ignored.
I couldn't be happier to debate this. I love debating politics, and there's nothing that amuses me more than smacking around lefties. So all you lefties out there that want to come in, let's try to get like 30 or 40 of you lined up at a time, and maybe you could make like one argument that sort of registers against me. So I'll be happy to debate this topic. If I could explain it just a little. So I wanted to have a red meat topic, one that would be eye-catching. Now I stand by the topic and I'll defend it, but there are some caveats, right?
Okay.
The purpose of this criticism comes from my annoyance at constantly having people demand that I condemn things that Trump does when they themselves have cheered on the exact same types of behavior or worse when it was done against Trump or by the very people that Trump is opposed to. Now, this isn't universal. It's not just Democrats. There are certainly never Trump Republicans that fall in there. I throw them into the same basket as the Democrats and the media in my statement. However, there are people that register as Democrats or that are on the left that actually have good faith criticisms of Trump. And for example, let's take an issue like Lawfare. They'll say, we don't like what Trump's doing with Lawfare. He's going after Democrats, but they did call out when the Biden administration or when the Obama administration was going out. Those people I'm willing to listen to. I am tired of listening to people that are bad faith, that their entire worldview is orange man bad and the ends always justify the means. I'm tired of listening to them say, we demand that Trump supporters criticize X. We demand that Trump's team answer for this. To you people, I say, kiss my ass. You should be ridiculed and laughed at. This is why you lost, because everyone knows you're full of shit. You are the most blatant liars in the world, and we should mock you until you're completely out of all political and cultural power, and that's what I will defend tonight.
Oh, shit. Well, all right. Let's begin with let's start with like the highest criticism of them all. What would be that for you? Like, what's the highest criticism that you think is bogus?
So it got about a half hour to prepare for this debate before I came in because I was at my niece's ball game with my family. So in just a half an hour, just thinking about it, I came up with 20 examples of the blatant hypocrisy of the Democrats and attacks that they have on Trump. Let's start at some of the most blatant of ones. The idea that there was an entire movement to remove Trump from office using the 25th Amendment because of questions of his health by Democrats who then proceeded to cover up in one of the biggest political scandals in the history of our country, Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline. They scream about things like mud democracy while they lied about Biden's cognitive decline to force him to, by de facto, win the primary. And then after it was outed in the debate that he was basically a human vegetable, they installed Kamala Harris without one Democrat vote. Now they want to lecture us about democracy and about Trump's administration lying. Every single person, whether it be at the top levels of the Biden administration, Jill Biden, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, whether it be media people like Jake Tapper, or whether it be the little piss ants that I debate on here, these lefties that lied about this cognitive decline that was obvious for every American who saw even one video of Joe Biden to see, none of them should be trusted for any political opinion that they ever have for the rest of their lives. They should be mocked and ridiculed. I don't care if their opinion's correct. Actually, we think tariffs might be bad. I agree with you. I think tariffs might be bad, but I don't want to hear it from you, who is willing to gaslight and lie to us about the most blatant of things. So these people should rightfully be ridiculed and shamed only if they have contrition and humiliation where they beg for our forgiveness and explain why they falsely believed that because the ends always justify the means and Orange Man is bad and is a white supremacist or this and that, and so we had to lie to you, but we're shamed, please forgive us. Maybe then I'll listen to them have some sort of criticism, but they won't do it.
Does that come into kind of a whataboutism, though?
No, because
if you're pointing towards the Biden concept, right? You mentioned Biden obviously being kind of in a vegetable state during the debate, and whether that was being called out or not. Isn't that? I mean, could it be considered that?
What is whataboutism, right? First off, a lot of people use the term whataboutism in sort of like talking about legal troubles and things like that. Oh, you're saying that just because Joe Biden had mishandled classified documents, that's whataboutism to talk about Trump. No, our English common law is based on the concept of having equal application of the law. So whataboutism is actually not some flippant criticism or flippant escape that they'll have you believe. The fundamental basis of our law needs to be that basically there's equal application. And so if you could see the only time we're using these laws, for example, the Alvin Bragg case that said Trump committed campaign finance violations in paying off Stormy Daniels. It was a novel law. The first time that we ever charged with a felony a former president was a law that they created on the spot. And a law that's basically broken by everyone who runs a campaign, some sort of campaign finance violation. They turned it into 47 felonies. So when it comes to legal matters, the whataboutism thing's just a joke that excuses their bad behavior and the double standard that they issue. But when it comes to the specific of like Joe Biden's mental health, it's not whataboutism. In fact, quite the opposite. I'm willing to have conversations about Donald Trump's health. Absolutely. Okay. It is not sufficient for me to say there must be nothing wrong with Donald Trump's health because of the issues with Joe Biden. What it is the people that are demanding that that's a big issue, who themselves covered up, I'm holding them to the standard that they deserve. So I will listen if someone comes in here tonight and says, Rob, I have questions of Donald Trump's health, but let me show you evidence of how I was making these very criticisms about Joe Biden for years. I'll say, absolutely, I'll have that conversation with you. I will not listen to the people that blatantly lied, and now they're trying to gaslight you and saying, actually, we did call out Biden's health, and actually, there's no evidence that source, what's your source that Biden was cognitively declined? Those people could kiss my ass. They're not worth my time. They don't live in reality. They're bad faith, and it's not worth engaging with them.
Okay, that's fair. So you're saying if they acknowledge point A, then you're willing to talk about point B.
Absolutely. And you can take this down the line of all sorts of criticism. Now, the irony is that, like, I'm not going to deny that there are people that are Trump supporters that are sycophants that will never criticize anything he does. That's terrible. But the bigger cult is the people that hate Trump. The truth of the matter is most of the lefties that we see tonight that'll be on this panel, I just have a hunch. Most of the ones that I've engaged with online, you know what their central core political belief is? It's not that they are maybe not a socialist or a Democrat socialist or a corporatist or a centrist or whatever. They probably are those things that they claim. But more important than any of those core values is Orange Man bad. And so they're willing to throw out every value set they have to go after Donald Trump. So they'll do things like this. They'll say, I can't tell you how many times I've had this debate. We'll go through a rabbit hole of what about obstruction of justice of Donald Trump when he told this guy, Nada, that was his assistant, to move boxes. Oh my God, that's obstruction of justice. I'll say, what did you say when Hillary Clinton's team destroyed subpoenaed evidence? That is blatant 100% obstruction of justice. Did the FBI charge anyone? No? Were you okay with that? And you know what they'll say often now? They'll say, yeah, okay, I guess they should have charged Hillary. But they didn't. My criticism isn't with Hillary Clinton. It's with the FBI that engaged in the double standard. And so now that you're saying the FBI should have charged them, but the FBI didn't, are you willing to admit that there's a double standard at the FBI? And of course they won't be. They are willing to sacrifice any individual politician because they're not supporting an individual politician. They're going against a politician. So if they have to bury 50 Democrat politicians to take down Donald Trump, they'll happily do it. But what they won't do is take these criticisms seriously in real time. Just like with Russiagate, when you had people like me out there saying, like, this is all horseshit. They told me in real time I was a conspiracy theorist. And then once it turns out that I was right, what do they say? Well, it was a long time ago. Time to move on. It's always, it's not happening, and then, well, it did happen, but it was a good thing, and now it's time to move on. Now let's get to the next criticism. So after all the bullshit about Russia collusion, and then moving on to January 6th, and then moving on to Elon Musk and Doge, next week we'll be on to the next, but Trump wore a blue suit to the Pope's funeral. And then once that shit's debunked, we'll move on to the next thing. All the while, each and every time, they'll say that I'm a ridiculous conspiracy theorist for debunking the bullshit that they're talking about.
Okay.
I hope I'm riling people up to come on. I really hope. I can't wait to wreck some people tonight.
Oh my God, you're killing me, Rob. Okay, so then tap into the media, because you kind of tapped into the law side of things and how we should apply it across the board. But the media, they're not obligated to that, right? So where does the media chime in on all of this?
Of course, obligation's different. As a media, like your obligation, I'm not even going to say that it's nothing to do with the legal matter. Now, the theoretical obligation of the media, and if you listen to like the White House press correspondents, they always pat themselves in the back. We're the fourth estate. We hold truth to power. And the truth is they're right. That is the role of the media. We, the common people, especially back before when we were all getting our news from newspapers and things of that nature, we do rely on people with more access and more time. Think about it. In my world, everyone's blue collar workers. Most people aren't nerds like me that are coming home and they're reading stories about Hunter Biden or they're reading stories about Russiagate. They're welding all day. They get home, they're exhausted. They want to hang out with their families. Like, that's the shit that's going on. And so who do you rely on sort of to get access to information and to do that prying into stories and give you a truthful account and to hold truth to power, to hold the powerful in our country, regardless of party, accountable? In fact, although I think that the media goes too hard after Trump, that's never my criticism. You can go as hard as you want. That's okay. The problem is how easy they go on the other side. That's the problem. So the obligation, or at least what they in theory are supposed to be as journalists, are people that are informing the public. And yes, it is important to have that. The sad truth is we don't have that. We don't have journalists. We don't have media. We have propagandists. They don't hold truth to power. They bury the truth for the powerful. That's what their job is. And so, yes, I'm not saying that they should be held legally accountable. They should be defunded in the sense that we're giving all this money from USAID and other places that are going to places like Politico, the New York Times, NPR, PBS. All of them should lose their funding. We shouldn't have to have one of our tax dollars go to fund these left-wing propagandists. But as far as what should the consequences be for them, I'm not suggesting legal consequences, but they have shirked their obligations and became pure propagandists, and they should be mocked and ridiculed, which is exactly what my statement is about. These people are rightfully losing the trust of the American people, and it should continue. And actually, I'm grateful to them because it's a reason that someone like me has anyone that's willing to watch them. If we actually had a media that was trustworthy, then all of a sudden, the online pontificators like myself wouldn't have a reason for people to watch me. But no one trusts the media anymore because they realize it's a joke. And the quintessential, the most basic way that you can see that is the most blatant lie that I've ever seen in politics, that they tried to gaslight us for 4 years that there wasn't cognitively anything wrong with Joe Biden. It was all cheap fakes. It was all Republicans pouncing on a stutter. And it was all bullshit. Your uncle that has poor eye vision, that had LASIK surgery twice, could fucking see that Joe Biden had something seriously wrong with him. And they looked you right in the face and said, no, there's nothing wrong. Now they're cashing in. They're shamelessly writing books, trying to cover their ass, going, oh, we just didn't know. And that's another thing you'll see when it comes to these politicians, when it comes to the media, when it comes to the judges, when it comes to the FBI. It's never that they're corrupt. We could have evidence after evidence that there's an institutional bias against someone like Donald Trump. We could have agents at the FBI that are in charge of investigations saying they need an insurance policy to stop Trump. Then we could see the double standard in how they went after Trump versus how they protected Hillary and Biden. And yet still, the argument that we'll hear from the Democrats and the media is, oh, it wasn't corruption, it was just incompetence. Oh, we didn't know in the media that there was something wrong with Joe Biden. How were we supposed to know? We had no clue. There was no way of knowing. Really? Because the average person
have the most access to seeing him. I would imagine. I mean, like you said, somebody even with that needs LASIK eye surgery could kind of see that. I mean, and everybody kind of called that out. But even the media has a lot more backstage access than we, the viewers, have. So what's being shown on screen is very minimalized compared to what somebody behind the scenes would be able to see.
Of course. And it's always this. The people that are supposedly, let's go through 3 examples real quick. The media, they clearly have more access to Joe Biden and his administration than me and you. And yet my son, who's 4 years old, could have watched the Easter egg roll and saw Joe Biden be led by the hand by the Easter bunny and said, Dad, what the hell's wrong with that old man? Anyone could see it. And yet the media somehow missed it. The very people that have the most expertise and most access, they accidentally missed it. Whoops, our bad. We're incompetent. Sorry. We're least qualified for our jobs than the average kindergartner. Sorry, our bad. Anyways, trust us now. Let's go to the FBI. There was a head lawyer at the FBI named Kevin Kleinsmith. When they were getting illegal FISA warrants to spy on Donald Trump's team through this guy, Carter Page, which make no mistake about it, by getting a FISA warrant basically is to get a special court warrant to treat someone as a foreign spy. And so in effect, you're taking away all sorts of First Amendment protections that they have and Fourth Amendment right to privacy because you're treating them as a hostile foreign agent, basically. So they went after this guy, Carter Page, low-level staffer under Trump, and they got FISA warrants. There's something called the 2-hop rule. The 2-hop rule means that they were able to spy and get all the communications of Carter Page and everyone he talked to. So all of his handlers in the Trump campaign, all the emails, all the phone calls, all the text messages, but they take the next hop as well. And all of the people that those people talk to. In effect, this was a way to do Watergate. You know, Watergate was a couple of bumbling fools looking through Nixon's opponents' papers at a hotel, and they were in effect able to go through the communications of the entire Trump team, including when he was president, through this 2-hop rule. Now, we'll never know, unless Dan Bongino and Kash Patel do their job, exactly what information they got access to, but that was the point, to have total access by the FBI to all of this. In order to get that, the third FISA warrant, one of the things that was done was that we actually saw this head lawyer, Kevin Kleinsmith, who was texting in his personal life things like #ResistTrump, right? That's what he was texting. He asked the CIA, he says, listen, did Carter Page ever work with the CIA to help out Russians? And the CIA responds via email, yes, he did. So you know what Kevin Kleinsmith does? He changes the answer yes to no. And then he gives it to his bosses and says, here you go. And the bosses submit that to the court and say, oh, Carter Page claims that he helped the CIA, but he never did. And so they up the fight. They reinstitute the FISA warrant again. That's what they do. The defense that Democrats have is, well, it was just incompetence. One of the top lawyers at the FBI didn't know that anyone who's ever watched an episode of Law and Order knows. Cops can't change evidence to the opposite of the truth. You can't do that. And yet we're supposed to believe that this top guy at the FBI, it's not that his bias, which he had obvious bias against Trump, was saying #resist. No. It wasn't corruption. It was just rank incompetence. They just didn't know. Another example I'll give you. Sarah, are you an epidemiologist?
No.
You're not, right? Let me just give you a hypothetical. Let's say I was to tell you that there's going to be an airborne virus that comes around, and we don't know shit all about it. But I was to say, Sarah, as a layman, can you name me some groups of people that you think might be most at risk for an airborne virus in general? What are some of the people that you would suggest?
Old people and children?
Old people, that's interesting. Now, in my state, the health secretary was a trans individual named Rachel Levine, who incidentally got promoted to an admiral under Joe Biden. But at this point in 2020, they were the health secretary of Pennsylvania under the Democratic administration of Tom Wolf. Did you know that Rachel Levine and the counterparts in places like New Jersey and New York, they forced nursing homes to accept patients of the virus? They forced them to accept it. which predictably led to mass amounts of deaths. So while they locked us down, they locked down the young, healthy population. Well, I'm not going to call myself young anymore. But when they locked down the young, healthy population and said, you're non-essential, you shouldn't go to work, they said things like, what do you want, grandma to die? You want grandma to die? Meanwhile, they were forcing grandma to have a new roommate that already had the virus. And then she was dying. And what we're told was, well, they did the best they could. They were experts. They were doing the best they could. And yet you're not an epidemiologist, and you knew right out of the gate, well, the people we should protect first are old people. But somehow the experts, it's not that they're corrupt. It's perish the thought. It's just that the very health experts that we are supposed to rely on for being the smartest are actually dumber than the average person that's ever watched an episode of House. And like every damn time it's, oh, they're not corrupt. It's just incompetence. So nothing to see here. Anyways, trust the experts. Trust them next time they come around. So that's where my anger comes at with this shit, because we're constantly hectored and lectured that we have to trust these people, and it's just incompetence. Don't worry about it. It's just that the media didn't know any better, even though they have more access than you. You know,
even at that, incompetence doesn't fly. Right. If you're a heart surgeon and oops, I cut the wrong valve, like, incompetence doesn't fly. We see lawsuits come out of stuff like that all the time. If you're incompetent, you are in trouble. So were there consequences for the incompetent?
No. And that's, I say this all the time. Let's concede it. Against all logic, let's say, you're right. It wasn't anything to do with corruption. It's just incompetence. Let's concede that, right? So as us practically, think about this, right? If the FBI doesn't know that you're not supposed to take evidence and change it to the exact opposite of what it says, if it truly wasn't corruption and it's just incompetence, isn't that worse? Like,
Yes.
say the FBI gets evidence that's like, oh my goodness, Al-Qaeda is about to launch an attack. And they go, we're going to change that evidence to say they're not going to launch an attack.
God.
Wow, that's somehow a defense of the FBI. In many ways, having corruption, at least you know what to deal with corruption. Incompetence in many ways would be worse. And yet routinely, the Democrats and the media use this as the excuse. Oh, it's not, perish the thought that we would ever be corrupt. So you have Jake Tapper out there today going network to network going, oh, somehow we missed it. Somehow we ridiculed all the Republicans that said they saw something with Joe Biden. It turns out they were right. How were we to know? We didn't know what to do. And it's like, how is that a defense? It's bullshit. It's clearly bullshit. They did it to protect Biden, and now they're trying to save their ass. But even if we accept, why would we ever listen to them again? If they were so easily duped this time, who's to say they're not going to be just as easily duped the next time? So what credit? If your mechanic is intentionally driving up the cost of your car every time you go, that's bad. But if they're just incompetent and they blow your engine every time you take them, is that any better? But that's the argument the Democrats make.
Okay, so let's flip the responsibility around then, right? So if I continue to take my car to that mechanic, and even though they destroy my car every time and make it worse, then at what point does the accountability fall to me? So how would we in turn, obviously I feel like there should be consequences in place for incompetency, but where does the accountability come back to the trusting of it? If that is possible.
You're absolutely right. One of the biggest complaints I have with people on my side of the ledger is how they look for validation for these very people. So you'd have someone like Bill Maher that in 2018 or 19 said that he was cheering for a recession or a depression because poor people having to pay more would be worth it if it meant stopping Donald Trump. And yet you go to X and you find the big right-wing accounts. They can't wait to be like, look what Bill Maher said today. He defended Trump. He had dinner with Trump. This happens all the time. The very people that have been antithetical to everything surrounding Trump or the people that support Trump, they're the ones that constantly are sought for validation from Republicans and the people that support Trump. In fact, even Trump himself, how many times is he going to learn before he goes out and does these interviews with like Maggie Haberman at the New York Times, who then's going to spin it in the most negative light, and Trump's sitting there holding the bag like, what happened? I thought we had a good conversation. So yes, you're right. There has to be some responsibility. For example, let's take this issue. How many times will we see that the polls are wrong, almost always in the same direction? There were polls that were suggesting that Kamala Harris was going to win Iowa by 11 points. We were told that the pollster that did that was like the best pollster that knows about Iowa. She got devastated there. That pollster has quit their job. And yet, I assure you, going into the 2026 election, even me, I'll be back there going, oh, polls suggest that Republicans are 2 points down. We never learned the lesson. Even me to this day, I allow the mainstream media to basically control the topics of conversation. What am I going to talk about? It's part of it today. Jake Tapper's book. Really, what I should do is take my own advice and ignore Jake Tapper and say, who the hell cares what he says? But there is some, look, even he is saying it, like aspect of that, because one of the arguments you'll hear from the Democrats is, well, we're not going to trust your sources. Who are you listening to? Fox News, Breitbart, Tucker Carlson, Glenn Greenwald? We're not going to listen to you. We don't listen to them. Okay, now the people you tell us to listen to are saying this stuff. Of course, they're doing it to cover their own ass. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And then that's just us as individuals. So yes, there's some responsibility for us. But what about the Republicans and Donald Trump and the people in his administration? Yeah, ultimately, I mean, they continue to fund the very apparatuses that are used to attack them. You're going to see like tooth and nail fighting from the Republicans in the House and Senate when it comes to instituting some of these Doge cuts. They'll give you surface level stuff. Yeah, we'll defund NPR, but they're still going to fund the FBI that was used as a tool to go after Donald Trump in the biggest example of political interference probably in our country's history, unless you're talking about prior actions by Herbert Hoover's FBI, which was pretty damn bad too. The FBI has a rich history of being a bunch of scumbags. So, but they'll keep going back to that well. They'll keep saying, well, wait a minute. They're great people there and we still have to trust them. So yeah, at some point, especially with Trump, you have to at some point be like, dude, if you keep going back, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 2,383 times, what are we supposed to do? You know, and so Trump will still do these interviews with the mainstream media. If it was up to me, I would have disbanded the FBI immediately. When I got into office, I would have never, the White House press correspondents, anyone who's a member of them, I'd say, you get zero access. We'll talk to the local papers in any town. We don't give a shit if they're Democrats. We'll talk to them. We ain't talking to CNN. We're not talking to the Associated Press. We're not talking to the New York Times. Oh, of course it would be mean, but that's what I would do.
No, that would be quite the like fuck you kind of concept, but in a very like head rolling kind of way. Like it definitely puts a foot down, and I think it makes a very clear statement. Are there any media outlets out there that you would trust or are more trustworthy than most?
Yeah. So I think there are individuals. There are certainly people on the left that criticize. As an outlet as a whole, though, I have to be careful because let's say something like CNN. CNN's dog shit, but that doesn't mean that there can't be individuals in CNN that are doing better than other individuals. I don't like Fox News either. I think Fox News is shit. I think that they are not as pro-Trump as people will have you believe, but they certainly have their own agenda as well, and I don't watch Fox News. You know, I try to watch little clips on all sorts of things. I try to read the Washington Post, the New York Times, the AP. I try to see what people like Jake Tapper are saying. I try to see what people like Rachel Maddow for a good laugh is saying. I try to see what people like Greg Gutfall or Brett Baer are trying to say. And so, you know, there are I think that we're getting away from the mainstream media, at least for me, and I'm looking more to understanding that everybody has a bias and try to understand that bias and to get information from differing outlets and then trying to make a judgment up for where I think likely is the truth. But there are certain people that are better than others. Jake Tapper, ironically, was someone who at least was willing to be a little more neutral than someone like a Rachel Maddow. But one of the most shameless things I'll ever see in politics is his book tour right now. It's transparent what's going on. Not only are they reading, everything that Jake Tapper's doing right now has been sort of shot through a PR firm. So you keep hearing him say words like, I look back with humility at my treatment of the Biden image. It's with humility that I look back. That's a term that was crowdsourced, you know, went through a focus group. That's why he keeps using that term. And what's going on is they see that the Democrats are in a lot of trouble. They see that the media's trust is tanking because of that issue primarily, that the average person's like, even if you're a Democrat, you're like, holy shit, the media just covered for the fact that we basically had a human vegetable for 4 years. We have no idea who was running the show. This dude had the nuclear codes and he couldn't eat ice cream properly. Right? And the media covered for him. And why would we trust anything they say, even if they're politically aligned with us? So the media and Jake Tapper are like, oh shit, we have to have a pretend mea culpa. Our bad, we're sorry, but now you can trust us. And so they're doing two things. One, they're scapegoating Joe Biden. And here's the other thing. If you're with these institutions, whether you be Republican or Democrat, as soon as you outlive your usefulness, they will bury you. They will scapegoat you. And the Biden family's about to find out. They're going to get the blame for allowing Donald Trump to win in 2024. And it's something I've been saying since the onset of the election season. I was like, listen, Joe, if you're listening, Biden, you know, before you go to bed at 3 p.m. here, just understand this, that they're going to bury you, man. They're going to bury you. They're going to blame you for this loss if you lose. And so it would behoove you to come out now swinging and be like, look, here's where the skeletons are buried. But he didn't do that. And so now they're going to bury him. And, you know, I take no pleasure in saying that not only is he going through cognitive decline. Listen, for those that don't know, my previous job that I'm just wrapping up here was working with adults with developmental disabilities, autism, all sorts of stuff. So I know I'm hamming it up a little saying he was a vegetable, but I actually feel bad as a human being for him. And certainly with this metastasized cancer that no doubt they were covering up as well. Yeah, I feel bad for that as well. I do. But they're going to bury him. They're going to put all the blame on him and say it was him and a couple of handlers around him and shame on them. And now that they're gone, you could trust all the rest of us again. And then the second thing that they're transparently going to do is turn it against Trump. So you could already see Tapper doing this. He says, oh, well, yeah, these questions about Biden's decline, my goodness, we've learned our lesson. What about Trump's health? Why don't we know more about that? Right. All of a sudden, your curiosity. And if you remember on this issue particularly, there was a lot of talk in the first Trump term of removing him for the 25th Amendment because supposedly he was crazy. And there was talk of, who was it? Rod Rosenstein, who was like interim director before Chris Wray, I believe, after James Comey went out. There was all these rumors that he wore a wire, or he was going to wear a wire, suggested it, and try to get Trump saying crazy shit so that they could remove him using the 25th Amendment. And then all of a sudden, you remember, like, Trump's doctor came out and was like, yeah, he's got a clean bill of health. And Trump in his Trumpian ways, like, you know, best cognitive test ever. They said I'm going to live to like 200 years old. He comes out and he's saying this like brash bullshit. But the media was like, this is absurd. This is a cover up of his health. What's going on here? And then human vegetable Biden walks in and they're like, ho hum, nothing to see here. Oh, those are cheap fakes when you see what looks like him stumbling around in front of world leaders. That's just a cheap fake. Don't believe that. And then as soon as Biden loses, they're like, oh yeah, everybody knows that this dude was out to lunch. And it's so predictable to watch them. And everyone could be wrong. We all have biases. You have a bias. I have a bias. I'm going to be wrong about shit all the time. Like, that's human nature. The key is to try to shrink your bias to at least be somewhat in objective reality. But when you see people that are willing to lie to you about the most blatant of things, why would you ever trust them? Like, if you see someone, if you have a camera in your house and your house sitter, you see them like smashing into your jewelry box and taking it. And then the next day you call them up and they show up to your house and they're wearing literally the necklace that your grandma gave you. And you're like, hey man, I think you stole the necklace. They're like, no, I didn't. Yeah, here you are on tape. No, that's not me. Why would you ever believe that person again? It's such a blatant lie. You have them dead to rights. And it's not as if you said, well, I think that Biden did the best for the economy ever. I think that's a bullshit statement, but at least that's defensible. You're like, well, that's sort of an opinion. And, you know, you could massage data to say one thing. We're not talking about a lie like that. We're talking about the most blatant of lies, and they've done this all the time. They tried to get, Joe Biden himself ran on the claim. He said, the reason I got into the election was the fine people hoax. Basically, that Trump said, you know, people that are fans of that Austrian painter are good people. There's fine people on that side. Trump never said that. He gave 3 speeches after Charlottesville, and all 3 times he condemned white supremacy. And yet they kept going back to that well. More questions. And finally, frustrated because he's supposed to be doing a talk on his economics. Oh, by the way, here's another thing. Unlike Biden, Trump like freely talks to the media all the time.
Yes.
So he's doing one of these wheeling and dealing like, yeah, let's talk about my economic plans. Mr. President, why won't you condemn, you know, Nazis? Sorry to say that. Why won't, or what's the word they told me to say instead of that? I can't remember. We'll call them, instead of that word, because it'll probably come up, we'll call them bad red shirt guys. How about that? Why don't you condemn the bad red shirt guys? Why don't you condemn, you know, the white supremacists? And finally, out of frustration, Trump's like, look, it wasn't all there. There was good people and bad people on both sides, you know. And then he, a sentence or two later, is like, clearly I'm not talking about the white supremacists, the red shirt people. I condemn them, and I rightfully should. Yet that was it. My friend Andrew Wilson's going through the same thing this week, where they take a 20-second clip of him saying something out of context, and they just are like, bam, bam, bam. Then when I talk to people on the left, they're going to be like, I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes that Andrew Wilson said that. I saw Trump say that. I saw Trump say to drink bleach. I saw it with my own eyes. And then when you painstakingly go through and you're like, no, that's bullshit. Let's go through the entire context and the entire quote. And the other thing is, it's always, that we have to, with Trump, we have to ignore all of the context around it. We have to pretend that we're just like automatons. Like when Trump's frustrated in front of national TV cameras and he says, yeah, Hillary Clinton's private server, you know, if we have, and then all the emails got deleted. I guess if we ever want to see them, Russia, I hope you have those emails so we can see them. Now, the joke's clearly Hillary's team got away with it by the FBI deleting subpoenaed evidence, and we're never going to know what they said. And so he's like, oh, but we know that our foreign adversaries, no doubt, were trying to hack her. So I guess that's the only way we'll ever find those emails. And the Democrats pretend to not know what a joke is. And they're like, oh my God, Trump just went on national television and asked Russia to hack Hillary Clinton. And it's like, it's such bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. Meanwhile, I've debated people like Destiny, where he'll be like, no one ever said that if you were vaccinated, you couldn't get the disease. And you could pull up clips of Biden saying that, or, you know, Rachel Maddow saying it, and they're like, well, that's not what they really meant. That's not what they meant when they said those words.
Right.
So it's always taking what Trump says either absurdly literal, even when it's blatantly a joke, or like ignoring all sort of context around it. And while they're willing to be as charitable as possible when it comes to the other side.
Does this make you question the media more along the lines of pre-internet, pre-independent, like people like us, you know, content creators and so on and so forth? Because I feel like for me, I'm not a news watcher, but if something big's going on, I'm not going to Fox or CNN or whatever to get the original of whatever they're saying. I'm going to somebody else who, you know, like somebody like you who would break it down and say, well, here's what they're saying, but X, Y, and Z and X, Y, Z. But we didn't always have access to this kind of stuff. Do you have more fears of what could have been thrown out into the media, like in the 90s, early 2000, before we had people able to call it out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you lived through just the year 2020, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say that for whatever reason, culturally, Trump never has a resurgence, and sort of it just goes back to politics the way it was, and the next election is going to be, you know, Hillary Clinton versus Jeb Bush or something like that again, right? Like the same old faces on the right side and the left side, right? And we lived through that. 20 years from now, they're going to be like, George Floyd protests there was no violence. It was the summer of love, right? Like no one suggested lockdowns. No one suggested it. What are you talking about? Lockdowns? No, it never happened. And that would become the narrative. It happens to us in real time. You could live through something, see it, and then the media is so rapid. There's so many stories, so many outrages, one after another, that you'll forget it. Even someone like me who looks at this stuff all the time, I'll be like, oh shit, I forgot about that story 5 weeks ago. And how many stories have we forgot about? And the narrative's just rewritten. How many times, for me, I can't tell you how many times I've debated people that'll be like, actually, no one ever did lockdowns. No one suggested lockdowns. No one ever tried to force you to take a medication against your will. That didn't happen. What are you talking about?
Oh my God.
And you're just like, or they'll be like, to this day, you'll talk to people that are like, I didn't see any evidence of Biden's where's your proof that Biden had cognitive decline? Or everyone was talking about it. Look, here's an article from the New York Times. And then you'll read the article and it'll say something like this, you know, Biden's cognitive issues raise questions. And then the first paragraph will be like, Republicans pounce on allegedly Biden's cognitive issues, but a closer look shows that there's explanations for all of these things and they were taken out of context. And yes, he's slowing down a little from old age, but he's always had a stutter. And they'll use that as an example to say, see, everyone was criticizing. You're mistaken. It wasn't that there was a cover-up. We could even have Jake Tapper out there writing a book like, oh my God, look at this cover-up. I'm the biggest person on CNN, and I'm saying that there was a cover-up and we got the story wrong. And it doesn't matter. I will guarantee that we have someone call in tonight that'll say, no, everyone talked about Biden's cognitive issues. What are you talking about? There wasn't a cover-up. Everybody knew it. Everyone talked about it. And it's just, if you could see that sort of gaslighting in real time, you have to ask yourself, like, everything we think we know about history, particularly after we had the advent of sort of more sophisticated propaganda after the creation of the CIA, etc., you know, what's true about it? You know, we'll be careful here, but we can go into questions of the USS Liberty. We can go into questions of Operation Northwoods, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. How many times were we lied into a war? How many times did we say, this foreign guy's the boogeyman, but then it turned out that it wasn't that simple? Yeah, they probably were. Guess what? Newsflash, most leaders suck and do terrible things, particularly when you're talking about third world countries. I have no love for Assad or Gaddafi or Putin. I don't like these people. But the idea idea that we're just told like, no, they're like Sauron. They're just evil, and we're Gandalf, and that's that. That's the way it is. It's bullshit. But we have that picture throughout history all the time. It's amazing to me. I'll say things all the time that just turn out to, upon a further look to be bullshit. I was debating a libertarian one time, and I was like, well, we can't go back to the days of the Wild West. It was like crazy, People were just getting gunned down. Look up those stats. Turns out that's not necessarily true. The Wild West was far more peaceful when it came to gun violence than you may have the impression. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and those statistics aren't to be trusted. I didn't do a super big dive, but it really illustrates the point. It's like, holy shit, how much of what we're told is just sort of the winners writing history? If you would have asked people in this country circa 1950, who are the good guys, cowboys or Indians? They'd be like, cowboys. The Indians were all a bunch of murderous bastards. But then if you watched sort of the change that we had in the 90s, 2000s, now all the Indians are depicted as like noble savages and the evil white man's coming in. Now the story's probably a little more complicated than either of those pictures. But the way that our culture forms is there's a narrative that gets pushed oftentimes by entertainment, and that has an effect on people.
I was going to lead into that question, because how many movies do we see come out where they specifically make a narrative and make it look a very specific way, and we just take it at face value because, oh, well, this is based on historical things that happen, so we're gonna you have to kind of, and people just take it as fact. We don't think to look into it.
And think of this, right? Like, so one of the guys I like to follow is Mike Benz. He calls it the blob, this sort of establishment, this deep state, whatever you want to call it. And he talks a lot about the influence that the CIA calls the Department of Dirty Tricks, and how they've used color revolutions and influenced politics around the world. And one of the things that is statecraft policy of our intelligence is to use artists and entertainers. So, for example, there's pretty solid evidence that this band Pussy Riot, that was this sort of like feminist icon in Russia that was sticking up for gay rights, was basically working in tandem with the US State Department, right? There was basically Twitter isn't allowed in Cuba. So they created what was called Zunzanillo, I think was the name of it, which is sort of the Cuban word for hummingbird. A little bird like Twitter.
Yeah.
And they created this, and the whole point of it was like, oh no, it's just an app to discuss the weather and to discuss like entertainers. That's all it is. And then of course, our intelligence, the point was get a bunch of users into this, and then start putting in from entertainers, musicians, etc. Actually, we need a more liberal democracy and blah, blah, blah. So it's absolutely that culture influences our narratives in politics. And so if you're able to shift culture through entertainment, through any of these sorts of things, education systems, whatever, it actually starts to reshape reality. And it becomes difficult if you're just a redneck like me. I'm not a student of history. Like, I'm not super well read. And so for me, I think this illustrates, if even me could look through this stuff in real time and I'm like, holy shit, you could literally see a guy from CNN standing in front of fires going, it's a mostly peaceful protest. Well, what do you think it would be like if you didn't see that video? And if that happened 30 years before you were born, but that was what was put in the paper of record, the New York Times or whatever, how would you know? And so it becomes frustrating because, and then I'm not saying that this can't go overboard too. There are people that will just be like, well, that means that all of history is clearly bullshit, and therefore the bad guys were always the good guys and the good guys were always the bad. It's not that either. Just because the CIA's a bunch of like liars and they're like involved in what I would call it's tantamount to a coup against Donald Trump, that doesn't mean everything they say is wrong. If they say there's a serial killer on the loose in this city, there may very well be. But I don't trust them implicitly anymore unless I see facts to back that up, or if I see overwhelming circumstantial evidence to suggest that they have an incentive to lie, then I'm not going to believe it. And what I always say is, you're right. There will be someone that comes on that's like, well, it's a shame, Rob, that you're so distrustworthy. You're right. It is a shame, but it ain't my fault. It's theirs. Mm-hmm. What have they done to earn the average person's trust? Why would my neighbor that's a farmer, why the hell would he trust Jake Tapper? Why would he trust the experts on the pandemic that said, hey, man, you can't go to work. You can't go to your daughter's wedding. You can't go see your grandma in the nursing home. But Black Lives Matter could go march. They could do that shit. Why would he ever believe those experts again? And all these people saying, well, it's dangerous to not trust the experts. You're probably right. That's not our fault. That's the experts.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what can the American people do then? I mean, with everything, I do feel just my observation and kind of making my way around through the internet and panels and YouTube and all of these things, I feel like more people have opened their eyes to the idea that the media is nothing but a bunch of lies on screen with maybe a little bit of truth sprinkled in here and there, or even more so if they have a specific narrative to push, like the headliners read a very specific way and the details are kind of finagled in such a way where it's like, oh, well, that sounds terrible or that sounds great, whichever way they want it to spin. I mean, what do we do as the average people? What can we do?
Well, I think a lot of it is that you have to ask yourself what makes sense. And it's just going to get, no one's going to want to hear this answer. As AI gets more sophisticated, it's going to get way, way worse. Did you see that image of the kangaroo at the airport this week that was going viral? So there was this, it was all over X. It's this little video of this woman who has a, what do you call it? Like the safety animal or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Like you see the comfort animal.
Yeah.
She has this little kangaroo, and it's holding a boarding pass, like looking sad at the camera. And this woman's arguing with this airline official, like, let my kangaroo on the airplane. It's all AI. When I saw it, it looked like a skit to me. I thought it was fake, but I thought it was real. It was just set up. It was a skit. Everyone's now saying that was AI. What are we going to do? Like, we have people that believe that Trump said those red shirt people are fine people when he blatantly didn't. And you could see the transcript, you could see the video. So what are we going to do when there's video of him saying that? And he's like, no, that's AI. I never said that. And the average person, it's going to be indistinguishable. So you have to be very vigilant. And I fall for stuff, I do. But one of the things I always try to ask myself is, what is the utility of someone saying something crazy like this? There was an Onion article one time. I hope everyone knows.
Onion. I love the Onion. If you don't know the Onion, you've been fooled.
Yes. So it was either them or the Babylon Bee, which is sort of the conservative version of the Onion. You remember when Nancy Pelosi ripped up the State of the Union speech behind Trump? She ripped it up, right? And they changed it to a picture of her ripping a Bible in half. And it was like Nancy Pelosi rips Bible. And I had a dear friend of mine say, oh my goodness, did you see Nancy Pelosi ripped a Bible? And I was like, okay, think about this for a second. Even if you think that Nancy Pelosi's like some crazy Satanist, do you really think politically it makes sense for her to go on national television and rip a Bible in half? Do you think that that old lady has the strength to rip a Bible in half? So when you see shit like that you're like, wow. When you see Andrew Wilson allegedly saying, actually, you can't essay women because they enjoy it, you should step back for a second and go, wait a minute, even if I think that he's this horrible monster, does it make sense that he would say this publicly? Even if you think he really believes that, why would he admit that publicly? So that's always step one. I ask myself, like, does this even make sense? Then you have to try the best to do sort of as best you can, go to the original source material and make up your own mind. Oftentimes, even if you're relying on someone like me, I have a bias. And so you're going to hear things from just my perspective. And I'm going to, even if it's unintentional, put my own spin on it. And so as best as possible, like here's an easy example. A court decision comes out. You could listen to me talk about what that court decision means, or you could go read the 12-page decision yourself and try to, come through to your best conclusion of what that means. And so, you could watch a debate. Who won the debate? Well, if you don't watch it and you just listen to Rob Noor, it's going to be like, oh, Rob says Trump crushed this debate. But if you didn't watch me, you might say, actually, I think Trump lost. But you're influenced
For the record, nobody wins a debate. The chat always wins.
I thought you were going to say, for the record, no one watches you. I was going to say, oh, shit. coming for the throat here. But, so it's difficult. The best you could do is look at the circumstantial evidence around you, see what makes sense, and then try to go to original sources as best as possible and try to listen to sources that are going to disagree with each other and then come to the best conclusion. It's depressing. It really is. For me, though, I think that I've started to realize that although it's not always true, a lot of times if you try to be charitable and you use your gut and you try to you hear someone make a racist joke, try as best as possible to be like, is there another explanation for this? Was it really racist? Or, and so if you start under that assumption as best as possible and then try to use your gut, that's the best I could come up with as opposed or in addition to looking up original sources and stuff. Now, I know people are going to be like, Rob's going to be a hypocrite because he's about to be very uncharitable for the Democrats here. And listen, I can't wait to get to this panel because I got 20 examples with sources I can't wait to throw in everyone's face. So you're about to see that I could be quite uncharitable if I want, but I think I have good reason based on sources that I've looked up and living through these incidents to say that the Democrats have been absolute garbage on these things.
Is it okay? So what I gather is that the average American probably lacks critical thinking skills. I think it's fair to say that. I don't think it's necessarily insulting. I think that just most people haven't been trained in that direction. And I think that it's more than just going to school, writing papers, doing research, right? I think critical thinking is something that number one, you have to have a piece of it already. You have to have intuition, that gut feeling that says something doesn't seem right, or, I need to investigate further. But also, I think it takes years of training and ways to work around to develop that skill. Would you say that the average media outlet, or even politicians, and what they push and what they say and what they specifically make sure gets clipped and put out in a very strategic way, is done to kind of appeal to those who do not have the critical thinking skills?
Absolutely. And you're right about the critical thinking skills, but there's other parts to this. Who has the time? Right? Like,
Mhm.
again, think about your priorities. Everyone right now that's watching, every one of you, even the lefties that are going to come on here and get wrecked, you're actually a step above the average person in that at least you have an interest enough in politics and debate that you're watching a show like this on a Thursday
Right.
night, right? Like, my parents, you think my parents are watching politics right now? Of course not. They're probably having dinner right about now, talking about how they're going to pay next week's bills and the things they have on their agenda, and, how Aunt so-and-so is doing and stuff like that. So when you factor in those two things, that yes, people don't really have good critical thinking skills, on top of that, they don't really have the time or the resources to look into this stuff. Yeah, it's easy to see how institutions that want to take advantage of that are able to do so. And I'll give you an example that's not just left-wing or Democrat media outlets, it's everything. Go to X and look at the biggest accounts on X. They're garbage, right? How many accounts do you know that are just a right-winger or a left-winger that's just basically cribbing things from smaller accounts, not giving them... I can't tell you, my friend Jim Bob, I can't tell you how many times I'll see one of his cartoons, some big right-wing account that'll put one of his cartoons and not give him any attribution. None at all. And it's sad. And like, it's the easiest clickbait bullshit that they're doing. Like, here's an example you see, and they have it down to a science, right? Like, of how to get the most interaction. And then they're getting paid through X. So it'll be something like this. What do you notice about this video? And then it'll play a video. And then there's something that they realize, that there's human nature that go, I don't know, what did you notice? Or here's what I noticed. And all of a sudden you get all of this interaction. It's not about the people that are sitting there and they're trying to have like deep dives and deep discussions. They're not getting a lot of views comparatively to the people that are just putting out like slop, like 30-second surface level shit. And that's certainly true when you get more sophisticated, when it comes through our intelligence apparatuses, through our mainstream media. They know the red meat that their audience wants to help them maintain power. It's again, I have to be careful. I want to be honest here. The same's true of places like Fox News. They know what to say to rile up their base as well. It's absolutely true. But don't get it twisted. The vast power source lies when it comes to the traditional mainstream media in the left-wing side of it. The Democrats are the face of the establishment, and the media apparatus is as such as well. So you could say what you will about, well, Fox News has more people watching. But here's the deal, right? Most people that watch Fox News already have their mind made up. Most people that watch MSNBC, they have their mind made up the opposite way. The problem are the institutions that we are supposed to believe are more neutral, like the New York Times, Reuters, the Associated Press, PBS, NPR. That's the real problem. Those are the ones that set the agenda. They're the ones that are doing the reporting, that are getting the Pulitzers and getting picked up by everyone else. And that's where people that aren't diehard Trump supporters or diehard Trump haters are going to get their information. Right? And then it gets even more insidious than that. Like, let's say you come home and you're like, yeah, it used to be when I was young, you watched like the 5 o'clock news, your local news station, right?
Yeah.
I remember I was getting into broadcast journalism and I went and toured KDKA. I think maybe the first news station in the country, KDKA News in Pittsburgh. And I talked to this guy there and I got to ask him a question. And I was like, what do you think the biggest change we're going to see with the news in the next 20 years is? And I'll never forget what he said to me. He's like, local news will become irrelevant. Everyone will tune in to sort of 24-hour news at a national level. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Look where we are. His name was John Delano, I think was the guy's name. And I was like, now I look back, I'm like, damn, that guy nailed that. And when you see that, right, you start to understand, like, there's a market for this. There's only so many stories that occur. And so they're all packaging this story in a way that's sort of identifiable with the people that are consuming it. And they're putting this spin on it. But let's say you get tired of that. You turn on the 5 o'clock news. Shit, I don't want to hear this. You're getting everything from this establishment left-wing perspective. So you're like, you know what I'll do? I'm going to turn on a late night comedy show. Let's see what Stephen Colbert's about. Oh, same left wing spin. Let's go over to Seth Meyers. Oh, same left wing spin. Let's go over to Jimmy Kimmel. Oh, same left wing spin. You know what? I think I'll turn it over to sports. Oh, all the athletes have the exact same political view. Yeah, I'm tired of this. I'm going to turn on a movie. Oh, all the actresses and actresses and sort of the direction that most of these movies go. Same sort of bullshit spin. It's everywhere. It's all consuming. And by the way, this is why there's such a movement to indoctrinate children. There's a reason. I don't want to make this debate about this, but there's a reason. There's a reason that drag queens aren't reading in nursing homes. Instead, they're reading to children. There's a reason, right? Because they want it everywhere all the time to never escape from it. They want this indoctrination to be complete. And so it's everywhere all the time. And people check out of it. And I don't blame people. Like, why do you want to hear this shit all the time? Even me, my audience gives me shit. I'll say, hey, I have a 4-year-old son. I'll say, hey, we were looking through Disney Plus today and we found the new Buzz Lightyear movie and we watched it. My audience be, why the hell are you watching that shit? That's LGBTQ agenda. And it's like, yeah, you're probably right, but what am I supposed to do? Not have any entertainment in my life ever? Because
it does. Yeah, it gets to a point where you can't. Like, you can't escape all of it, and you have to be selective at that point, you know, like you just have to you have to accept it.
So I will say this as we get closer here. I will say that the one thing to watch for everyone that argues this is they're going to say, that's just whataboutism. That's what about it. That's what everyone's going to say. It's whataboutism. No one wants to be held to the standard. They're all going to paint me as this person that never criticizes Trump. I criticized Trump. I was offered a job through the Trump campaign in 2020. It was a small job just to run sort of the local county level shit. It paid like $20,000 a year. They told me I had to end my social media channel to take it. I said no. Within a week, I was criticizing Trump every day because I thought that he was embracing lockdowns, which was absurd. I criticized Trump for his absurd spending. I criticized him for the meme coin. I criticized him for bombing Syria. I criticized him for, I think, having Israel have too much influence on him. I criticize him for a lot of the language that he uses that I think is bullshit sometimes. I criticize him for some of the pardons that he issued. I criticize him because I think that some of the legal things that he's doing are going too far too fast. Even though I think that he's right directionally in what he's doing, the way he's doing it's wrong. But none of that matters, right? Everyone that comes on this chat's going to be like, everything you won't criticize Trump, it's all whataboutism. I want to make this clear. I don't want to hear it from you sacks of shit. Because you are full of shit. Because when it mattered, when the other side was committing far worse and blatant abuses, you cheered it on or were silent. So I don't give a shit about your opinion. The people that actually called that stuff out, I will listen to. I am not saying that Trump's allowed to violate the law in going after opponents because his opponents violated the law in coming after him. I'm saying I owe you nothing if you cheered on that violation of the law and now want me to criticize Trump. I'll criticize it to my audience. I'll criticize it to someone like Sarah. I'll criticize it to left-wingers like Glenn Greenwald, who called out the Biden administration. But I do not give a shit what you sacks of shit did. So when you call in, you better have receipts. Because I know the answer every one of you are going to have. I just got social media today. I wasn't around when Biden was doing this shit. So I didn't have social media, so I didn't make any comments. But trust me, I would have. I hear this shit all the time. You're full of shit. Own up to it. Just fess up. Yes, I think Trump, Orange Man, bad, and so it's okay to hold you to a standard that we don't hold ourselves to. Just admit it, and we'll be far better friends, and I could say, yeah, you're a sack of shit, but at least you're an honest sack of shit. So, can't wait. And like I said, depending on the direction this goes, I got the receipts, I got 20 examples, but we'll see where it goes, I guess.
And speaking to the sacks of shit, I've posted the link to the panel. It's up, it's pinned. So if you want to start hopping backstage, go ahead and do so. Now is the time. And I have one more thought while they're shuffling backstage. So I actually think it's opposite. I think we're not necessarily going to the big kahunas for the mainstream media for all of the answers. I think because we have so many more independents, such as yourself, that are taking that information and processing it on our behalf, and we don't have to do the critical thinking. We don't have to remember all of these different things. We don't have to do X, Y, Z in order to come to a conclusion. We can just simply say, you know what? I like Rob. I trust Rob, and I'm going to go to Rob to get my answers and so on and so forth. Right. So I think we're actually making a turn where the mainstream media, they're putting out the crap that they're putting out, but then they are getting critiqued going forward. Does that make sense?
It's absolutely true. It's amazing. You'll hear about an institution and how low their likability is or their trustworthiness. Now, again, here I go, being a hypocrite myself. I just said, who the hell would trust polls anymore? But now I'm going to say, don't trust the polls at face value. But you can see directionally, every institution that you look at, you'll be like, Trump's polling low for a president at this. Okay, fine. But then how's the Democrats doing? Well, they're polling even lower. I think like Democrats in general are polling something like 24%, which is abysmal. But then trust in the mainstream media is lower than that. And it's like there is a danger in no one trusting anything. There's also a danger in just trusting some dude like me, right? Like that, we're seeing there are legitimate criticisms when faith breaks down in these traditional institutions and everyone has a voice. Some people's voices are going to be batshit crazy. And people are going to believe them just because it's like, well, I found them. I think they say some things like, for example, if you're a man right now, a lot of people don't take your problems seriously. And so if someone comes on and they start talking about problems that men have, a man might be like, yeah, wow, here's someone talking about it. And so if their conclusion that they're drawing is then like, therefore there's this bloodthirsty cult that's kidnapping men and drinking their adrenaline glands and blah, 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 people might believe that shit. People believe flat earth. Right? So like when you lose faith in these, you're absolutely right. People are turning more to people like me. And that's okay. I mean, not only should you turn to me, you should give me all your money as well. I'll happily take it. I'm a capitalist, right? But you know, it's okay. None of us have time to fully look into everything. You know, you do this in your life all the time. How many people out here are mechanics? I'm certainly not. I have a mechanic I trust.
Right.
The mechanic might get real in depth and be like, here's exactly what's the problem with your car. And I'll be honest, I'm like, yeah, dude, whatever. What's it going to cost to fix it?
Right.
And so a lot of this is like this with the media. I'm just saying it's cool to do that. That's fine. It's even cool to be like, I trust Fox News. I trust CNN. That's fine. I think I have good reasons why you shouldn't. But like, you should try to balance that out at some point. Don't blindly trust anyone. Hell, I don't even blindly trust myself. And so, it's like, you have to realize that you shouldn't just blindly trust people, but when someone gives you, and particularly institutions give you reasons over and over and over again to distrust them, then you should not trust them based on blind faith alone. And that's where we're at with the media, with the Democratic Party, and that's certainly where we're at with our institutions like the FBI.
That's fair. I think that's fair. And I'm looking forward to the idea of being able to have a trickle down effect of where people actually source their information. Because, just like the Andrew Wilson clip, right? Somebody else could come in and say, okay, let's break this clip down and actually back it up and see what's actually being said, right? So we actually have people out there who are honest providers of information and say, let's look at this holistically. And I think that it's more important that we have that than to just blindly trust a news source and they just play one little piece and, oh yeah, everything's great. And then, shit's on fire, and they're not playing that, so on and so forth. And I think the independent people are able to go out and source further and find more information and call bullshit, and the people can be more trusting to that. That's what I look forward to seeing more of, and I hope that we get there.
I do too. And listen, again, as people that are even, it's not even just political spaces, right? Like, I'm not a big, historian on Gamergate, but the central allegation that we can't trust the gamer media, right? Isn't it nice to just now be able to find one of 10,000 people that's streaming online and say, hey, I'll take their opinion. They're playing the game in front of me. I'll take their opinion on what they think of this game and the ins and outs and things of that nature. So yeah, it's nice. It's more democratized where there's more people that are able to more freely do it. That means you're going to get more batshit crazy opinions, but it also means that you're going to tend to find people that are more trustworthy. So if you see, I guess the best advice I could give about this is anyone who always sticks to only blaming one side and never the others, unwilling to criticize their own side, maybe that should raise a red flag. And if you see people that are willing to blatantly lie to you, like blatantly, it doesn't matter about what, just blatantly in not joke form, right? It could be something as simple as this. If someone says like, yeah, I used to work at NASA. And so you're tuning into them for astronomy lessons. And then it turns out they fake that. That should raise an eyebrow to you. Like, that's something so
Right.
blatant, so easily provable to be wrong. That's different than, like, I say something like, Democrats are always the worst. And it's like, well, actually, no. That, like, those are different types of misstatements or lie. I'm not saying that the latter statement's good. I'm not saying that. But you see the difference. Democrats have the best economy. Oh, I don't think so. What about in 1987 when this happened? That's different than saying, I don't see any evidence of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. and especially when you see a pattern of it, like over and over again. Again, I can't wait to get into it with the audience. Here's another one we'll throw out real quick. You notice how it's always hashtag believe all women, but it's after the politicians that the Democrats need are out of office. So hashtag believe all women, except Juanita Broderick and Paula Jones. You remember with Paula Jones, James Carville, him and George Stephanopoulos were running the campaign for Bill Clinton. Paula Jones credibly accuses Bill Clinton of sexual impropriety. And what's James Carville go on national TV and say? This is what you get when you drag $100 through a trailer park. Now, this is the voice of hashtag believe all women. Carville's still on CNN all the time. Bill Clinton's still doing fundraisers for the Democratic Party. But the same people that will tell you, well, we have to believe the accusers of Donald Trump, they don't believe the accusers like Tara Reid of Joe Biden. They didn't believe Keith Ellison, the former head of the DNC's wife, when there's contemporaneous video of her calling the police saying, Keith Ellison just ran over my foot with a car. He's abusive to me. They don't believe that. They don't believe it. But afterwards, post-hoc, once Keith Ellison's out of office, once James Carville's no longer useful, once Bill Clinton's out of office, they'll say, yeah, we should have believed them. So why would I believe them the next time they say, oh, but this time we do believe women. We believe it when it comes to Kavanaugh. We need to look through his yearbook. We believe it when it comes to Trump and E. John Carroll. We have to believe all this shit. And it's like it gets
very selective.
Correct. And when you see that sort of stuff, it becomes frustrating because I try to be consistent on this. I think that when it comes to sexual assault allegations, we should take them very seriously. But you're also innocent until proven guilty. And my personal preference is, unless there's overwhelming circumstantial evidence that I'm able to see, I don't let that affect my vote. So I assure you, I did not vote against Joe Biden because of the Tara Reid accusations. It was more the kid sniffing, No, I'm just kidding. It was like his politics. That's the reason, right? But these people that are like, oh, no, we have to take the accusations against Donald Trump serious no matter what. And it's like, okay, well, is that true of Joe Biden? No, that's different. I trust him. He's a good guy. And this shit's everywhere. Did you know that one of Bill Clinton's slogans in the 96 campaign was Make America Great Again? And yet we're told by Democrats that that's a racist slogan. Was it racist when Bill Clinton said it? No. Why not? Well, because Bill Clinton's a good guy. He's not a racist. So what's your proof that it's racist when Trump says it? Because Trump's a bad guy. He's a racist. Right. So it's racist because Trump's racist. And what's your proof that Trump's racist? Well, because he said this racist thing.
Only apply the morality stamp when it works for our favor in that.
Correct.
Aspect.
And the difference is when it comes to institutional power, at least prior to Trump winning here in 2024, almost all of these institutions, whether it be the entertainment industry, academia, the mainstream media, Silicon Valley prior to 2024, all of them had the same politics. We're pushing the same establishment politics. They're shaping our narrative. I could get censored on places like you. I still have to say things like those red shirt people, that pandemic, because we're on YouTube. Right. And yet, without batting an eye, you could say hands up, don't shoot, which was a blatant fucking lie. But it doesn't matter. You can say that. It doesn't matter that led to riots. It does not matter. No, YouTube doesn't give a shit, right? You're not going to get demonetized for saying that shit. Dare I mention Twitch and Hassan with his Houthi pirates coming on, getting half-day bans when I get a 30-day ban from Twitch because someone that I brought on to debate me called me a homophobic slur 12 times? So I get a 30-day ban, and the person I was debating gets a 7-day ban. So, like, the institutional bias is crazy, particularly from institutions the higher up you get, like the FBI. And I'm here to tell you, you might say, but Trump's in charge now. Trump ain't shit, and neither was Joe Biden, and neither was Barack Obama. It's these bureaucrats. They're the real power in Washington. The people in the executive branch that you've never heard of that run all these institutions. Those are the people that are enforcing all of this shit. Those are the people that are reaching out to social media saying, we think you should censor these stories about Hunter Biden. We think you should censor stories about the pandemic and the origins of it. We think you should censor about election malfeasance in 2020, etc. Those are the people that are actually the movers and shakers. And when they're almost all going in the same direction, targeting people like MAGA supporters and Trump and his associates, that's what the unique problem is.
Fair enough. Let's go through, we're going to go through just a couple super chats. And the panel is filling up backstage. So if anybody else wants to hop on before we kick it out, we've got some good ones back there. Jess Gerald, with his 5-month membership, says, half a year I've been watching Sarah and I want to strangle spurging panelists. We all do. It's fair. And every night I go to sleep wishing that my pillow was...
How about spurging guests like me? I also spurg out. So
but you spurg. Okay, there's a difference in the way you like. You are very respectable, though, right? I give you the time and space to talk because I know you have something important to say, and you're very intentional with what you're going to say. You know, there is a difference, a big difference. And just coming in with the Big 10 preemptive question for every liberal on panel tonight. I hope you're all listening backstage. What is the woke right, and can you define it? And James comes in with his membership. For my friends, everything. For my enemies, the law.
Yep.
Rude mud crab. Sarah's glowing today. Did she get some? I got some coffee, and it makes me glow. There you go. What's the chat think? I don't care. Box says people over party and policy over people. And Jess says, but Rob, what about my feelings?
My feelings is going to be a strong argument tonight from the panelist, I think.
Even Lord says, funny, Russia got the only Syrian doctor, Assad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Assad is a doctor. He was the leader of Syria, and he was pro-Russian.
Oh, fair enough. That, Brad, with the Big 10, I had to take advantage of the opportunity to make a bigger super chat than just Gerald. Shots fired. I want to see a competition now. Back and forth, please. Thank you. Chuck sending in the maters. We love you, Chuck. And JB with the Big 5. People with insane motivations have no problem assuming others are equally insane. I think we're all crazy. I don't know about you.
Crazy, but not insane. Crazy in a very sane way. Yeah.
To what degree? All right. They're all hanging out backstage. So we're going to bring everybody on and we're going to have some fun. Rob, are you ready?
Yeah. Another prediction. I think I'll be the most attractive person on the panel. That should be pretty easy, especially if it's lefty. So let's see it.
I don't know. There is one back there that I would put money on that he does look better than you by far. He's a good looking dude. He's a very good looking dude. Here we go. All right. So I've got the wonderful Spicoli. Here's what I'm going to do for you, good sir. I will let you go first. I know you were very short-lived on this panel. If you start talking about the JJ stuff, I'm just going to boot you. But we're going to get straight to the point for your questions or inquiries or whatever. But outside of that, rules to the panel. You know how I operate. I don't care if you have something to say, but if you're going to say it, don't interrupt somebody else to say it. Please be kind, mannerful, and to the people in the chat, if there's anybody up here that you don't like and you want to boot them, well, the power is in your hands. $1 a minute, starting at $5, 5 minutes. You can happily boot anybody you'd like to the back, except for Rob, because he's the guest of the evening. So, all right, Spicoli, I'm going to let you kick it off, my
Real quick, before Spicoli, was it Soy Pill that's more attractive to me? I saw that picture of him flexing.
Yes.
Damn.
I did too.
I got to hit the gym.
I'll train you, Rob. I'll train you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Spicoli.
Go ahead, Spicoli.
All right. Well, I take it the topic has to do with whether we should criticize Trump or not. First of all, I want everybody to know that I'm an old school liberal, but obviously everything's gone so far to the left. I'm considered center now because the right moved to the left and the left just went off a cliff. So I'm like just slightly left of center is where I am. Okay. So I can speak objectively pretty much to all these guys. And I'm going to say this, I can criticize all of them. It's funny how people try to make it seem like they're trying to divide us and make it seem like you're either for Trump and you're against Biden, you're for Biden and you're against Trump, and that it's the old divide and conquer. When in reality, if you go far enough to the left or far enough to the right, it's not linear. It's actually more like a horseshoe or circular. They meet around each other. So the reality is, look, Trump is corrupt in his own way with his Bitcoin, the taking of this Qatari airplane. Everybody knows Trump is. I mean, look what he's doing with this Bitcoin dinner. I mean, here's how I can tell you he's corrupt, because I wouldn't do half the shit he's doing, and I don't consider myself the greatest virtue. But I know enough that I wouldn't want to walk down the rabbit holes he's going down when it comes to conflict of interest. And the same is true of Biden. So in my opinion, I can criticize both of them. They're both old, senile old farts. They're both, wait, Trump has dementia himself. Half the time he sounds like he's talking out of his dirt chute. So the reality is both these guys are too old to be president, in my opinion. I don't think you should be over 75 and should be president. There should be an age limit of 75. Both these guys are just, Trump in particular, first of all, here's what he's doing. You want me to criticize him? Basically, here's what he's doing with his tariffs. He's trying to raise money on his tariffs, which is basically an import tax, a regressive one at that, because it affects everybody, the most poor people, because prices are going to go up. And he's trying to offset that with his $1 trillion tax cut. So all he's doing is a wealth transfer from the poor to the wealthy. And why did people think that Trump, who's a billionaire, born with a gold spoon up his rear end, was going to care about you or me or anybody else? He doesn't. All Trump cares about is himself. Biden was the same way. Both these guys are just old farts. They're both too old to be president. And I can criticize both of them. They're both fucking corrupt, in my opinion, and both equally. Here's what I used to say. Trump's corrupt and Biden's corrupt. They're just corrupt slightly differently. But you know what? They're all just about money. All these guys are just about, first of all, with these tariffs, I'm going to make this point. How many people, my last point. How many people in his administration do you think, right before he started moving these tariffs around and manipulating Wall Street, how many of his cronies do you think he told, hey, I'm going to fucking relax the tariffs today. I'm going to come down hard on the tariffs. So all these people were shorting the market. They're putting in puts, calls, and shit. His inner circle's making a shitload of money off this, insider trading shit. And everybody's thinking, just let it slide, because everybody's got their heads up their ass. And I'm going to remind you people, 3-4 years from now, when the deficit $50 trillion fucking dollars, you're going to remember exactly what I said. And you're going to say, yeah, don't forget, Trump was the first guy. He was the one that shut down the economy during COVID, and we should have never shut the economy down during COVID.
No, really?
All right. Hold on.
First graduate of the Rob Norgish Gallup Academy.
Yeah,
really.
I actually say shit though. But.
Quick logistics. Ryan and Soypill, you got 5 minutes in the bag, and to the chat, you can revive them. You can revive them with the same dollar amount going the other way. So I've started your timer. You got 5 minutes as of now. Spicoli, just remember your words that you use here. We have to be gentle with which words we use, like that certain shot thing that we want to talk about, right? We got to talk about it in very particular ways. Okay, so if anybody wants to answer to all of those million things, you're welcome.
All right, Spicoli, let me say this in general. I think you fundamentally misunderstand what the point that I'm trying to make is. First, let me do something. You're right about Trump's meme coin. It's absolutely bullshit. You're right about Trump's massive spending. He was one of the biggest spenders. He spent more, outpacing even before the pandemic, Obama in the 8 years of Obama. It's things that we should legitimately criticize about Trump, and it infuriates me that some of Trump's best supporters refuse to criticize him, especially because I don't think Trump's an ideologue. I think Trump's someone who basically wants to be and seem as a compromiser, and so unlike most politicians, he's actually willing to be malleable when he sees his own constituents start to rail against something. Remember the whole bump stock thing? First he was like, yeah, bump stocks after the Vegas shooting. He's like, bump stocks suck, let's get rid of them. Then he saw how sort of rabid it pissed off his base and was like, whoa. So you make a bunch of criticisms about Trump, but here's the thing. The entire point of what I'm suggesting, I would disagree with you on some of this stuff. You said a lot there, so I don't know if we're going to go through each specific thing. But in general, a lot of the criticisms you have, I share as criticisms of Trump, particularly like the meme coin shit, the spending. Like, yeah, it's horseshit. Absolutely should be mocked, right? Absolutely should be called out. But my entire point of this is, if you're being honest that you're criticizing Biden and think that he's shit and you think they're equally shit, I welcome your criticisms. I actually do. I think criticism of Trump is healthy, and that we specifically that are supporters of Trump should welcome those criticisms from people that are good faith, right? So, for example, you want to talk about Qatar. Let me ask you a question real quick. Please don't drag the answer out. You say that it was corrupt for Trump to take this Qatari airplane. Did you also think it was corrupt when Qatar donated $1 million that wasn't disclosed by Hillary when she was Secretary of State to the Clinton Foundation? Did you find that to be corrupt?
Yeah, of course. I think the Clinton administration, I think the Clinton fund is just another pay for play bullshit thing. Of course, it's all corrupt. Of course, at that point.
So then
they're all cashing in.
Okay,
yeah,
so then the point is, if you're willing to call out corruption as you see it on either side, then I don't have a problem with it.
Of course,
if you were someone that came on here and said, well, I didn't know about the Hillary thing, and there may have been explanations, and it's not as big of a deal as what Trump did, and you didn't focus on that when it was occurring, when it became news that Hillary did this, but now you want to make it a big deal, I would tell you to kiss my ass. That's the point of the prompt that I'm saying. The people that want to cover up the abuses, the corruption on each of these specific issues that was just as bad, if not worse, from prior administration, particularly Democrat administrations, are bad faith. They don't really care about these issues. I'll give you an example. I hear Democrats rail about kids in cages under Donald Trump in his first term. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden said that it was a human rights abuse that there would be any kids in cages. And yet, within 3 months of the Biden administration, I think it was 3 months, there were more than 2 times more kids in cages. Where was AOC? Was she taking photo ops, crying outside the cages? No, all of a sudden, dem kids in cages didn't matter. F dem kids, they deserve to be in the cages. So why would I listen to now if people want to talk about kids in cages again under Trump when they were silent about it for 4 years? Those people could kiss my ass. That's the point I'm making. So Spicoli, I'd be happy to talk to you anytime about legitimate criticisms you have of Trump, because based on what you've said, if I take it at face value, you're willing to criticize the other side when they do these sorts of things as well, and so we can have a discussion. But the point of my prompt isn't people like you.
Wait, let me make a point. I'm not looking at it from which side I'm on or who I agree with. I'm looking at it if they're doing it wrong and I don't agree with what they're doing wrong. I don't care if they're a Democrat, Republican, right wing, or left wing. To me, if you're doing something corrupt, it's like a guy, an umpire in a baseball game. He's calling strikes, right? And he's going to look at the strike zone, and he doesn't care whether it's the Yankees, the Dodgers. He doesn't give a shit what teams. He's not favoring a team. He's just looking at the strike zone. And if the guy's throwing a strike, it's a strike. If it's a ball, it's a ball. He's not looking at who's in the uniform. That's how I look at it. I'm just calling it like it is.
Good.
It doesn't matter.
That's good. The last thing I'll say about this is, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying it's Republican versus Democrat. I'm saying that basically the old school Republicans aren't that different than the Democrats, and more that there's this deep state or blob or whatever that's really running the show behind the scenes. And the reason that they look at someone like Trump and all of these glass ceilings were broke with Trump, like he was the first one to get convicted of felonies, and he was the first one that we know that there were FISA warrants against his team and all of this shit. The reason for that is because he's seen as an outsider, and they didn't want that. Just like Bernie Sanders was seen as an outsider in 2016, they took care of his ass in the primary, though. But that's the only thing I have to say.
But what about that Senator Menendez that was taking gold from all those Arabs and stuff? He just got sent away for 10, 12 years. You know that dude, that guy from the East Coast, Senator Menendez, Robert Menendez. You know that
the guy that his own party held him accountable.
He had gold bars from Arabs in his house. Yeah, fuck him. Send him to jail. All these guys.
Allow me to retort. Yes, Bob Menendez committed crimes that were so blatant that it forced their hand, right? And they did it strategically when it was a point. They did it strategically when it was a point where the Democrats knew that they weren't in jeopardy of losing a seat. It was the same thing with Al Franken. But when it's people like Keith Ellison that they still have utility for, when he's credibly accused on camera of his wife calling police of the abuse that he was inflicting upon her, they shrug their shoulders shoulders and looked the other way. When it was Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, they shrugged their shoulders and looked the other way until they could no longer do it, and it didn't matter for their power anymore. This is exactly the argument I was saying with Sarah, that what you'll see is Democrats will say, we'll bury 10,000 Democrats if it means that we could go after Trump. But they never do it when there's still utility in those people. So what did the Democrats lose by going after Bob Menendez? What did they lose? Anyone?
They didn't gain anything.
No,
That's for sure.
Sure they did. They gained the ability to, so that people... They gained the ability so people like Big JC could come on here and go, see, Democrats go after their own, unlike Republicans that don't.
Accountable to the rule of law. Yeah, that is actually a distinction.
Really? Accountable to rule of law?
Yeah, it actually is.
Can you point
That's
me
your
to your
problem, not mine.
Cool. Can you point me to your criticisms of Hunter Biden and the FBI covering up for him? Can you point to me your social... Let me finish.
You're talking to.
Yes, that's right. I don't know who I'm talking to. You are a nobody to me. But can you point me to your criticisms of...
Actually, Rob, I got a better...
You gonna let me finish my point? You gonna let me finish my point?
Conservatives...
Are you gonna let me finish my point?
To obsess over Trump, but conservatives cannot shut up about Joe Biden. Dude is not the president anymore.
Right, but when he was for 4 years, and we were accurately calling this out at the time, the Democrats said that we were conspiracy theorists. And another tool in their playbook is to say, when it matters in real time, you're crazy, it's not happening. And then once they're no longer a threat to the... Would you just shut up? Would you shut up? Would you shut up?
You guys can do it, but we can't.
Would you shut up?
Pardon me for just a moment. JC, I know that you're new here tonight, but you have been in the Discord, and I appreciate your support and being here. But on this panel, I do not like it when people interrupt other people. It just pisses me off. It grinds my gears. It chaps my ass. And then I get pissed off, and then I just kick you out for the night because you're not listening to what I'm telling you. So I kindly request that you do not interrupt somebody else when they're especially in the middle of handing a point back to you.
With all due respect, then, maybe a more clear system on who has speaking time, because Rob has a tendency to ramble on incoherent points as long as he's allowed to speak.
And Rob, let me, Doc, you know better. Doc, you know better.
Sorry.
Number one, Rob is the guest of the evening. Number two, I'm in charge. Number three, shut the fuck up.
This is the Rob show, JC. You gotta live by Rob rules.
And I'm certainly trying to be quiet when other people.
I thought it was a debate, not a circle jerk. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Well, I think that there's a circle around me, and it ain't coming from my side. If you see what I mean. But I tried. Like Spicoli talked at great length. I let him talk. Right. Like, so the idea, I'm trying to be patient when other people talk. You made a point. I'm trying. By the way, I'll just say this. It doesn't matter, but just a sort of a thing that I think's a faux pas for streamers. Like, I love it. Soy Pill, I saw you do this as well. I see Big JC doing
Doc,
it.
take that down.
When instead of listening to the speaker, you mute yourself and then talk to your own audience. Good form. I'm sure you're really paying attention there. Anyways, I'll finish my point, right? I would like to see you show me an example of like when we had whistleblowers from the IRS coming out saying that the FBI was actively covering up for the crimes of Hunter Biden, particularly tax crimes and FAR violations. I'd like to see any social media post you had criticizing that, saying that these whistleblowers should be heard, that it's outrageous the FBI is doing it. Big JC, can you show me any post you made, any video you made, anything like that?
I thought this was the Rob show, not the Big JC show.
I asked you a question. If you can't respond, then what's your utility of being
I did respond. I said I thought this was the You show. Why do I have to demonstrate proof of the validity of my claims?
Well, because...
Why not just step up and give some
Then
claims?
leave, I guess.
He's answering. But he's answering you guys. Can I ask you a question about this?
Well, look. Look, here, I'll give you an answer, Rob. I think that the Hunter Biden, I think he should have pardoned all of Hunter Biden's future children as well, okay? I think with the level of heat that conservatives have lit the fire under this country's political climate, I think that it is high time, and this is kind of what I was pointing out, I think it's kind of ridiculous that you guys get to play by an entirely different rule book that any of us have access to, and I'm kind of sick of it. So, no, actually, I'm fine with Hunter Biden being pardoned. I'm fine with Donald Trump pardoning his kids, too. He's not going to be able to save himself from the capital crimes that were coming after him after the midterms.
And there you have it. That's exactly proves my point. This is why people like JC should be mocked, ridiculed, and we shouldn't take seriously any of their claims. At least he's being honest here when he's admitting that I'm fine with the fact that whistleblowers said that the FBI was covering up for Hunter Biden. In fact, we should pardon him for everything
That's
that
not
he
what I
potentially ever
said.
I just asked you a direct question, and you said you're happy with the pardon. So you're admitting that you didn't answer the question that I offered you?
I'm sorry, please. Me saying I'm okay with Joe Biden pardoning his son and any future children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren that he might have has absolutely nothing to do with the FBI's procedures.
So you then answered my
there?
So you answered my question with a non sequitur. I asked you a question and you gave a response that had, by your own admission, nothing to do with the question I asked.
I think that when the FBI takes inappropriate methods or inappropriate shortcuts, like Kevin Kleinsmith did when he mislabeled Carter Page as an informant, even the judge, by the way, agreed that that was just like an inappropriate shortcut. There was no malicious intent there. I think that, yeah, that is actually bad, and we still should like investigate that stuff, go after that stuff, and get rid of those malicious actors whenever and wherever they may appear. But I'm not going to interpret or assume malice on every government actor until I actually have evidence to do so, because I'm not an insane conspiracist, I guess.
Okay, a couple things on this. One, you see how that's a deflection from the criticisms of the FBI covering up for Hunter Biden. Second, that's fine. I'm willing to move on to Kevin Kleinsmith, no problem. You're doing exactly what I said, and Sarah laughed at this, where you're literally making the argument that I said you would, that this isn't corruption, it's incompetence. So can you explain to me how the head of the FBI, one of the head of the FBI's lawyers, didn't know that you're not supposed to change evidence to the opposite of the truth when he's saying things like #resist to go against Donald Trump, but you're like, it's absurd to think that there could be malice. You're saying it's just incompetence.
An argument from incredulity is not evidence. Do you have any evidence to suggest that Kevin Kleinsmith was acting maliciously outside of the action itself?
We have plenty of circumstantial evidence. The first is that he clearly had a bias against Donald Trump from the messages that we've seen released, where he was actually texting things like #resist. So he had motive. We see that he had a bias. Second, it defines credulity to think that a high-level person at the FBI did not know that you're not supposed to forge evidence to say the opposite of the truth. The circumstantial evidence is overwhelming that because he had bias and because this action defies credulity, that he wouldn't know you weren't supposed to do this, that he had malice in doing so. However, even if I concede your argument that this was just an act of sheer stupidity, that even your local level sheriff in a small rural community like mine knows that you're not supposed to do, how is this any sort of defense for these actions whatsoever? More importantly, as you contemplate the answer to that, can you show me any evidence of you on social media or anywhere else, anywhere, whether it be a video or anything, where you criticize Kevin Kleinsmith when this information came out? Or are you doing like I said that the Democrats always do, now that the situation's in the past, saying, yeah, I guess that was bad, let's move on from it now that it doesn't matter?
Okay, and before you answer back, allow me to interrupt for just a moment. Rude Mud Crab with the big five. Neve is breaking up with you. Bye, Duck. And to solidify Duck in the backstage, Godzilla came in with another 5 saying, stay out, Duck. And
Sarah,
then
Duck is your
Drake,
moneymaker. This is great. Like I've not seen you make this much money off of one person before.
Duck's the trooper, man. And Duck, for the audience, Duck's going to stick up for me more than most of these lefties, which is ironic because he's getting the heat.
I'm on my good faith arc right now, Rob. Nothing but good faith tonight.
Draco with another 5.
Do you love Duck?
Later, Ryan, go find the tooth. You got plenty of lies. And then Carl Anderson with 2. But what about Biden? Weak ass answer to question.
Clearly, I can respond to that. Clearly, you're missing the entire point. You're missing the entire point of what I'm saying. You give any criticism of Trump, and like Spicoli did, I just went through and was like, I share a lot of these criticism. I'm not saying what about Biden. I'm saying if you're the type of person that was fine with these sorts of abuses under Biden or any other Democrat politician, and now you want to pretend it's a big deal when Trump did it, we should not take you as good faith, because clearly you don't care about the issue, or else you would have addressed it when Biden was doing it.
Fair enough.
Can I actually ask you a question about that, Rob? Because that's like the question.
Can I answer the 2 questions that Rob asked me? He asked me 2 questions. And then Toy Pill, take it away, please.
You guys, right, as long as Sarah's done reading super chats. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm actually out, right? Do I have to wait?
I'm going to let you ask your question, and I'll give you a couple minutes.
Because I came in to really just ask these 2. The first one is the more important one, which is like, I understand what you're doing, Rob, where you're like, I don't want to engage with people who have this like faux pas, like, you know, hypocriticalness that allows them to not call out their own side, but then only ever like give into their side. Because I have seen people who are like, yeah, I'm only ever good faith when it benefits me. And I understand that being frustrating, but like, don't you think it would be more beneficial to, especially for these people who may not know let me be clear, like when you talk about like the FBI stuff, like I don't know any shit about that. Maybe truly, if you were to explain that to me, I would actually be like, hey, oh, you know what, that is corrupt. And I do agree with you, Rob. But by refusing to engage with people who didn't call it out in the past, you're preventing yourself from building those bridges and potentially even convincing them that that stuff is bad. I think you absolutely could. I mean, you clearly know a shit ton about it. You bring it up in like every single debate. My only.
And how don't you know?
Well, how do I know what? Oh, because I don't watch the debates. I just know that you bring it up in every debate.
How do you know that?
Because Pisco and Econoboy tell me like.
Because you've heard people that just right. You're starting to see a little problem there. You haven't seen first source information yourself. You're relying on.
And I haven't. And I'm not. And again, I'm not here to specifically talk about that. I'm just like the whole tactic, because this is like the whole thing, like the first interaction we had, where I was like, oh, this is silly, right? Like if I hadn't called this person out, like how can we talk about it now? But like I understand what you're doing, but I think that you can absolutely like have more convincing arguments if you just say like, look, I think you're being hypocritical here. I'm going to make my point about this. After I've laid this out for you, can you then show me that you like why you disagree, why you do agree with me, or like have I changed your mind? Like I don't know. I just think it would be
so
much
two
more
things.
But
you're the dude that faked the Photoshop. That was you fucking loser. So Soy Pill, right? Like when we were going through this arc, Soy Pill and company were real mad that Trump put a tweet out where he quoted Napoleon and was like, if you're saving the country, you commit no crime, something to that effect, right? And I had all these leftists clutching their pearls like, Rob, I demand you answer for this. And I'm like, dude, if you just lived through the lawlessness of the Biden administration, I could talk 6 ways from Sunday of it, and you didn't say anything about that. I don't want to hear you clutch your pearls now and demand that I answer for a mean tweet that Trump made. It's bullshit, right? Soy Pill here, then, after I already agreed to talk to him, and I was going to have a conversation much like I'm having tonight with this panel, he instead photoshopped a tweet, which I took in good faith, saying actually I did call out Biden. And so what was my response? Real quick,
you asked me to say it, and I did tell you I don't have these tweets. You know, like I didn't say this in the past. And he said then I refused to engage. And I was like, well, that's silly. And that is when I F12'd and edited the text.
What happened when you
would engage? Well, then you did engage, which I
did engage.
But the problem is, Rob, like that thing, like the thing that I had to fake, it didn't exist, right? I hadn't called that out in the past, whether or not that was because I was engaging at that moment as a content creator, or because I didn't even see that story, or didn't care about it, or I disagreed with your take on it. I still think that you can have that conversation. It's very important to have that conversation.
Well,
you could stop it at the moment, like right, like.
I think that two things, right? One, the first thing is, right, like your argument of what would be better for me for pragmatically for my side is just that your opinion. I disagree. Sometimes I engage with people, sometimes I don't. It's my personal preference on when I enjoy to do so. So that's number one. Second, I don't take in good faith that you're legitimately trying to help me help people understand it. I don't think that that's what you're doing. I think
it makes for a more interesting conversation. You're right. I'm not trying to help your side. To be clear. Like, yeah.
So let me finish real quick. I think that the utility is that you understand by allowing the focus and the control of the narrative to be on people that were bad faith and didn't give a shit about the issues you're talking. Let's make it real simple, like the kids in cages. That you would say, oh, just because these people cried about kids in cages under Trump and then they ignored or defended it when it was under Biden and it was 2 times as worse, but now that Trump's back in office, they want to talk about kids in cages. Strategically, you should talk about kids in cages again and explain. No, bullshit. That's their form of controlling the narrative, particularly on these spaces. I'm tired of giving in to lefties that have all of these.
Call them out for that.
Let me finish. That have all of these institutional advantages on platforms like YouTube, where they're not getting demonetized, they're not getting algorithm manipulation against them, they're not getting censored for talking about certain topics, right? And so given that, I will choose to talk about who I want, and I will talk to the people that are more malleable, including audience members of people like you, Soy Pill, and I'll explain in good faith why these issues are corrupt that I'm talking about, but I owe you nothing. And your opinion that I owe you something is not, it means nothing to me. And I think that there is more utility in not allowing people like you to sidetrack and control the narrative by assuming that you're arguing in good faith when clearly you've shown an example that you're not. That's what I think.
Well, I understand that, but I think you're really limiting yourself from the conversations that might actually.
Thanks for your concern, Mr. Photoshopping a tweet to talk to me.
I keep telling you it's not Photoshop, dude. It's F12. Last thing, Sarah, and then I'll just head off the bench. You don't even have to kick me in the background. I heard you say, because I wasn't listening until the very last time before you jumped on, why aren't they reading transgender story hour, drag queen story hour to people in old folks' homes? Like,
correct.
You know, people in old folks' homes can read, right? Like the ideas. Like
they also do.
Like to like read to kids is like it's a reading time. Like they
Guess
don't.
What I did.
They might play music for old people, and they actually do. They do like burlesque and drag shows.
Were you ever in the Boy Scouts?
But was I in the Boy Scouts?
Yeah.
No. I had.
When I was in the Boy Scouts.
Guess
instead. What we did? We went to nursing homes and read.
Okay.
So the idea that this doesn't happen, because a lot of people have you ever been into a nursing home?
Yeah, I did. I did volunteer work in a nursing home, and we played music.
Will you acknowledge that there's a lot of people? There's a lot of people that, like, whether it be through poor eyesight, dementia, other things, don't really have the ability to read.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's fair. Okay.
Right. And so, like, the idea, like, nursing homes are desperate for people to come in and offer any form of entertainment. You're right. I also played French horn. I went in and played French horn for elderly people. I saw people.
French horn is based. Actually,
I should be kicked off.
Rob and I will agree on.
I hear you. French horn's like the heaviest instrument because it's so coiled up. So, you know, Fuck. Soy Pill's probably working out lifting French horns. You know, that's how he's bulking up here. But yeah, there's all sorts of reasons. It's just a throwaway point that I'm making, but it is that there's not a big interest in other things. Like drag queens aren't going to nursing homes and playing music either. Why?
Actually,
are they all untalented? They don't know how to play
French. They actually do like a lot of drag and burlesque stuff at like old folks' homes or like in community centers. Like that is a big thing. That's what the thing is. Like it does seem. This is where I'll leave off because like we could talk about this for hours. But like I think I've heard you say a lot of stuff, Rob. Where I'm like you're like the target audience for why I made my YouTube channel. I'm like your understanding of this is I think clouded by like a right wing narrative that I think if I had enough time we could just talk through it and be like, oh, like I think my take's reasonable enough that you would understand it. And I don't
trust you. I don't trust
you.
Take.
I know
you Photoshop shit to lie to get involved in conversations. So I don't give a fuck what you.
Well, first of all, Rob, that was just the Twitter conversation. It had nothing to do with our debate, to be clear. But second of all, it's not Photoshop. I keep telling you, it's F12.
I don't give a shit what mechanism. Oh, well, what do you mean, bleach bit? Like wiped it with a cloth?
And I didn't have to tell you, and I told you because you said I was good faith, and I actually felt bad about it. So that's
right because I wanted to engage with people that were good faith, and then you admitted actually I'm bad faith.
Well, no, I was like, let's clear the air and let's set the record straight and let's start from scratch, right? That's what bullshit. I tried to do.
Here's some advice. Thank you for your advice on who I should talk to. Let me give some to you. If you're actually interested in starting a YouTube channel so you can have good faith conversations with me, who's the target audience, then maybe the first interaction we have shouldn't be you F12ing and faking an image to enter the conversation in false pretenses. So why don't you reflect on that a little before you offer advice to other people on what their conversation should be like?
I tried, Rob. Let it be known I tried, okay?
You were in that debate with me regardless, were you not?
Well, until you left.
Well, yeah, because I'm not... Dude, you're so fucking stupid. You come in and you're like, basically, I chumped you out. Ha ha. At the beginning of the debate. What'd you expect
started off saying, I'm here with this stupid motherfucker who doesn't know anything. I was like, okay, well, let's clear the air. Because I actually did want to have a conversation about something completely different.
Okay, do we need a debate?
No,
like not tonight. Not tonight.
I'm genuinely interested in like talking about some of the things that Rob does have grievances in a way that I think that he would understand. Like I'm actually, I'm trying to be nice. Rob, I'll take you to the gym. I'll buy you a beer, and we'll talk about some Democrat stuff. Okay, like I'm actually trying to like reach out and build a bridge here because.
Thank you for that bridge. I think that. I definitely need to work. I could get my back fixed, but I do appreciate that offer. But what I'll say to you is, no, thinking about it, I refuse to engage with you in a one-on-one setting because I think you're a sack of shit that manufactured a tweet in order to get me to enter a debate in false pretenses. And
it has nothing to do with the debate, Rob.
Let me finish. And then you announced it at the beginning of the debate in order to sort of chump me out. So go fuck yourself.
That's man, I wish that was what happened. But
I wish that you wouldn't have been a bad faith sack of shit. But you were.
I mean, between the two of you guys, I'm probably more on your side, Rob. But I love Soy Pill.
He seems
he's always been reasonable. I would totally debate him in a half a second, right? Because he always actually.
Don't push Rob out of the way. All right, Rob. Don't let him shove you out of the way. Try to steal his spot.
I will stand side by side with Rob on any debate, right? But I'm just saying to Rob. I actually think that Soy Pill is also a good faith debater. That's my
all right. Let me ask you this real quick, Vibe. Let's say you're doing
Before you do, just mild housekeeping because it's driving me fucking nuts too. Who the fuck is typing?
It's me, and I'll leave when I answer my questions from 15 minutes ago.
You can hang out backstage.
We're building bridges, JC.
While everybody else is trying to actually have a fucking conversation. Just word to the wise, panel rules 101. If you're going to sit on panel, and I understand, there's other people talking. We have to wait. We want to talk in chat and so on and so forth. Fucking mute your mic. It ain't that hard. Thank you, Jeff.
I'm about to get kicked. Do you mind if I say one thing before I get kicked?
Can I just real quick say this to Vibe? Like, to answer this, let's say that you were like, hey, I want someone who used to be a firefighter because I have a disagreement that I'd like to talk about them on my channel. And I said, yeah, I used to be a firefighter. And then I come on your show, and you're like, thanks so much. It's really nice to have someone that was a firefighter here. And I go, actually, you fucking idiot. I manufactured that evidence. I was a firefighter. Still interested in talking to me?
Wait, Rob, can I explain exactly what happened from my perspective?
I don't. You can try. I don't give a shit.
Maybe you don't give a shit, but just for the record, okay? This is what
I want to answer it. Okay,
hold on, wait, Vibe, because this is irrelevant, right? Because like, I mean, it's not irrelevant. That's similar to what happened, but not really what happened. But Rob, let me clear the air here. Like, this is what happened. Wick said, "Do you want to go on this panel?" I didn't even know you were on it, by the way. I agreed to that panel. You agreed to that panel separately. Now, this tweet was completely adjacent to this. I tweeted. I saw you reply. I forgot it was Lactoid or someone replying about, "Hey, I think that, you know, this thing is not so bad, but I'm not going to criticize that because of your ideology of like, hey, I want to call out people who actually have been calling out their side when they're bad. Otherwise, I'm wasting my fucking breath. Understand that, right? And so I said, you know, hey, like, don't you think it's bad, like in general? And we didn't have a history, right? We don't know each other. And your immediate reply to that is, well, unless I know that you called out Joe Biden when he was corrupt, then I won't engage. And I saw that as bad faith. I was like, this is weird to me because I thought we could just talk about
then
it. Like,
why would you want to talk to me
you
if you thought I was being bad faith from the outset?
No, well, first of all, I engage with any bad faith actor because I'm like interested, at the very least, interested in like hearing what they have to say. But I was like, okay, well, that's a weird tactic. Like, and I explained this in the reply. I was like, look, I don't have that. Like, I can't show you this because I didn't say it. Like, but isn't there still a conversation to be had? You said no, so you doubled down, said no, I don't want to do that. And so I was like, well, what if I, you know, fabricate some silly evidence? Let's see. Like, well, then he talked to me, and you did, and I appreciated that because you were true to your word. You did. You said, look, thank you for showing me, and then you gave your opinion, which is what I wanted, and I was like, that's great. And then in the debate, you were like, you're the only reason I'm here to have this good faith conversation. And I unironically,
that's not quite
like,
what I said.
Well, something about that, right? And
I said
like,
that my strategy in this debate was going to be similar to what it was tonight. To say that, and let me give my version of what happened then, right? What happened for me was, I have all these people that I'm debating regularly on the left. When I told out and was like, look, here's, you know, Joe Biden, Merrick Garland's sending the FBI to collaborate to go after angry parents at school board meetings. This is terrible, blah, blah, blah. And these people say, no, it's not a big deal. But then as soon as Trump says words, not actions he's taking, that's not what people are criticizing, words. He said this tweet. He said, oh my God. Now, I personally wasn't a big fan of the tweet. And when I talked to Lactoid and I talked to Ryan Malali, who's a lawyer who's more centrist, I had whole conversations with them. It's like, actually, I'm not a big fan of this tweet. Let me explain why. I don't think it's as bad as what people are saying, but here's my legitimate criticism of Trump saying this, right? But what was happening was I had all these people that I interacted with in the past that I knew had no problem with lawfare that was being directed against Donald Trump. They did not give a shit, even if it was illegal, like illegal FISA warrants and spying on Trump. So I don't owe those people shit. When those people start adding me and they're like, oh, what do you think about this tweet? My answer is, fuck you. I don't care. I'm not going to talk about Trump's words and tweets when you defended or were silent about the actual actions that his opponent took that were far graver than just these words, right? Now, in the context of that, you jump into the conversation by your own admission. You're saying that you saw that there was some sort of interaction. So you knew what I was saying about this. You're like, oh, well, what about me? Well, you answer to me. I say, did you jumped in the middle of a conversation where I was making a point. I'm tired of these people that are bad faith because they were okay when Biden did this shit, demanding that someone like me answer for just a tweet. So I asked you the same question that I was asking all these other people I knew. And you were like, well, maybe first you said no or you didn't answer. And I was like, then I'm not interested in talking. Then you fabricated a tweet. And I was like, I was in the room with my wife. I was like, fucking hey, someone answered. Like, yes, I could have a good conversation about that. This is great. So I was excited. My plan going into the debate, I didn't know you were in that debate with Wick, but my plan going into it was I was going to approach it like this. Like, fuck you guys. I have an opinion on this tweet, but if you guys were okay with what Joe Biden did, I'm not going to sit here and all of a sudden have to answer questions about what about Trump's mean words? Trump's mean words suggest he may do what our actions did to him. Fuck you. No, I don't care. That's how I was going to approach. But I was excited and changed my strategy because I knew at least one of my opponents was good faith. Then you announced, haha, I made that up, which was, if you would have waited till the end, I'd have been like, okay, I guess you got me. But you said it early in the debate, which meant that I'm a chump if I don't at that point be like, then fuck you, I'm not engaging with you. You entered this conversation in bad faith. You entered it in bad faith, so I didn't give a fuck. And every interaction I have from here on out with you will have that in my mind, that you lied and you tried to chump me out, and so go fuck yourself.
Right. So
that's
again,
it. Simple.
This wasn't this wasn't me trying to chump you out or lure you into debate. It was literally
I don't believe you.
Okay, sure. I'm just telling you what my truth is. You don't believe that's fine. But my understanding was I thought it was interesting because I did want to know your opinion. I was like, okay, Rob seems like someone who at least can engage with the fact of like, hey, I will criticize Trump when he does something bad. I was like, well, like, don't you understand that, you know, this Trump tweet is kind of indicative, like a weird, like, you know, I'm above the law sort of thing. Like, what do you think about that, Rob? And I felt like, well, if I can't show you a thing I never said, then like, it's weird that you wouldn't talk to me about it. Especially
I don't give a shit.
No, that's fine.
Finish up and then I'll tell you.
The point is, like, I would understand if you like you look at like a Pisco or these other people you talk to and you're like, look, but it's so I would think it would be so simple for like, yeah, I'm not going to engage, and you know, I don't want to like you know, give you the time of day if you're going to be like such a hypocrite about this. But if you do publicly state it to people in these spaces, what's the difference between saying, here's my opinion on it, also go fuck yourself because you're a hypocrite? and just
because
not
I
talking
owe
to them
you
at all.
nothing. Because I owe you nothing, and I'm tired of engaging in good faith to people that are clearly bad faith. And particularly when it comes to mean tweets, I don't give a fuck. I don't think it's an important topic anyways, and I'm not going to owe anyone these answers. And listen, you want to give me advice? My advice to you is if you want to have honest conversations with people, don't enter into them with farcical lies and then say them early enough into the debate where you force their hand. And I just want to say, I don't believe a fucking word you say. If you steal $10 from me, and then you're like, I find out you stole it, and then you're in my house next week and $10 comes up missing. I don't care how sincere you seem to be when you say, trust me, bro, I didn't steal the $10 this time. Once a thief, always a thief. Once a liar, always a liar. Go fuck yourself.
Can you understand, though, like why I said
no,
it at
fuck
the
yourself.
beginning?
I don't give a shit to even attempt to understand you. Fuck you.
But like,
I'm not even attempting to understand you.
I do. All right.
Done
talking. You're just kind of like shutting down.
Done.
All right, but we're still here. But I guess not.
You're there, but I'm done talking to you.
All right, Rob. I tried. I tried. Well, Rob, good luck. And
thank you.
The offer still stands, but let's say that Marte absolutely is much larger than me, so you can absolutely take the advice from him. You'll get much bigger. But careful of the stack. All right, it does things to your heart.
He never
okay?
manufactured a tweet to lie to me. So how about that?
That's true. He didn't ever manufacture a tweet to lie to you, but he might die when he's like 35. So be careful. But, thank you, Sarah, for having me. I appreciate the invite.
And Rob, I might ask you. Sorry, just for a second.
Not for me, yeah. Okay. No, I'm out. I've been booted.
No, I'd like you to stay for a second.
Well, I don't know the rules, Sarah.
Yeah, okay, you can get him.
Am I allowed to stay? I feel bad for your chatter. They kicked me off.
It was a 5-minute boot. It's not.
I'll go for the rest of the panel. Vibe, ask your last
I just wanted to put one statement out there to Rob: is you have your audience, and they trust you. We were talking about media before, and who do you trust, right? Don't you want to talk to Soy Pill's audience?
No.
Don't you? My audience likes you more than you might think, Rob. They do.
I'm just saying.
Good. I'm glad they could come over my channel. I don't want to watch to someone that tried to chump me out and lied as a pretext for having a type of conversation with me.
Well, let me say this: like, I would never blacklist you for using AI during the debate. I wouldn't blacklist you for engaging in something where you frame something in a dishonest way, because I still want to hear what you have to say, and I think you should extend that out. I really think
you should want to hear what I have to say. I don't give a shit what your opinion is on why I should talk to you after you lied and then haha yuck yuck announced it at the beginning of a debate where you got me to have a strategy.
I did that because I thought I was
talk to you
nice,
because I thought you were good faith, and then you bragged about being bad faith. Go fuck yourself.
That's why I told you, because I felt bad that was the reason you.
I don't give a shit what your explanation is. Why would I believe you when you entered the conversation?
It doesn't matter. I'm just letting you know what I think, and you cannot believe me. But that's the
right, and I don't believe you. I have no reason to ever believe anything you say, because our first interaction was you entering in, fabricating a tweet to lie to me.
Okay, Rob. But yeah, I tried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Have a good one, guys. Good night.
Have a wonderful evening. Sorry it didn't work.
I wouldn't have even remembered that it was him if he didn't announce it. But now that he announced it again,
you see me in your dreams. Don't lie.
I do not.
Oh.
So I think I'm also supposed to be kicked for 5 minutes. I just wanted to say one thing. I mean, first of all, I think using AI during debates, I would never shame you for that, Rob, because I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the way that we use AI can be criticized, but personally, as a neurospicy ADHD guy, it really helps me collect my thoughts. So I'm in big favor. In fact, I'm actually going to read something I organized here using ChatGPT. So my issue with Rob is that he machine guns out 5 claims per minute, talks about the emails, Russia, Biden's memory, and he's hoping you won't dig into any one of these. But if you slow down, they actually each fall. Well, maybe we'll get to that. Let me read my whole thing first. But I think if you do slow down and go through each one of these, they tend to fall apart. The FBI didn't charge Hillary because there was no intent. The Mueller report confirmed Russian interference and obstruction. Biden's memory, the media did report on it, but Rob floods the zone with half-truths, just like Trump does, who, by the way, he talks about Trump's mean words. Trump doesn't just do mean words. He also signed more executive orders in his first 10 days than he did in his entire first year, which is not about governing. He's trying to overwhelm the people. Rob mentioned the accusations against Trump, or against Biden, excuse me, from Tara Reid, but he fails to mention that Trump was found civilly liable for essaying E. Jean Carroll, digitally raping her, actually, it's kind of a weird thing to leave out when you're talking about sexual.
You say essay and then use the R word.
My bad. I apologize.
That's all right. I already used one word I shouldn't have, so I just wanted to.
It's weird to navigate. I usually don't take those.
I will also say I believe sometimes it's in context too.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
You're
But
okay.
I try
just wanted
to
be safe. Yeah, that's
I try to play by those rules, but I think you're right. The context is important. But I also wanted to respond to Just Gerald. I responded to him in chat as well, but he asked about the woke right, and my opinion of the woke right is that it's kind of an identitarian movement on the right wing that hijacks the language of oppression to punch down. It's basically like Darvo for identity politics. It denies the harm, it attacks the victim, or it attacks and reverses the victim and offender. And in my opinion, it's transparent as all hell. But I believe I'm supposed to be kicked out for 5 minutes.
Well,
so,
leave him stay, because we'll do this real quick if you only got a couple seconds, because the audience rightfully doesn't like you. I actually like you, Radical Coder. I do like talking Radical Coder. So
you'd be surprised.
It's funny to chat.
Your audience likes you too,
Radical
Rob.
Coder comes on my channel. He's he's a fan. He's a hate watcher. I like it. Right. So let's.
I would also have a beer with you, Rob.
Thank you. Let's go through these one by one. Right. We'll start with one, and if we only get through one, that's fine. You say the reason that they didn't charge Hillary Clinton was because she didn't have intent. Is intent necessary in order to commit that crime?
I believe so, yes.
Well, isn't it true that gross negligence wouldn't require intent, but that could be part of the statute in charging? Standard?
I think you'd have to. This is what I'm saying. I would like to see the statutes that we're referring to, right? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay,
and so what I would want to do, if we were going to sit and do it, I would like to pull up some sources together and read through some stuff.
Let me inform you.
This is my issue with you, is I feel like you don't usually do that.
Let me inform you, since we don't have enough time to do that with each of these issues. I'd be happily to do this.
Well,
with
you say inform me, but what you're going to do is actually just assert something, right? And that's my issue.
That's true. And then you can look it up yourself.
Pardon me, just because it's logistics, they booted, but I consider the time of the speed date with Rob and Soy to count for that. I usually do that, so I think you're okay to continue on. I don't.
I'll make this point in case someone boots you again. I'll make this point quick. James Comey actually changed his original statement, said she was gross negligent, but because that was the language written within the statute that they were considering charging her, he changed it. But let's say, I'll be honest with you, Radical Coder, I didn't think she should have been charged. Nor did I think Trump should have been charged, nor Biden, because unfortunately everyone mishandles classified information in Washington. And so I think to single out one person and charge them would be a bit asinine, even if it's someone that I'm not a fan of. However, the crime that should have been charged, which is blatant, is obstruction of justice, which they make this huge deal in going after Trump because supposedly this dude moved around boxes. Are you aware of the fact that Hillary Clinton's team had evidence from Congress subpoenaed? 30-something thousand emails. Do you know that?
Yes, and the emails, there were emails that were deleted after the subpoena, right?
That's correct. Is that a crime?
I don't know that. So what I'm saying is I don't think so, because my understanding is the FBI could have charged for that and they didn't, for various reasons, which including intent. But to the Trump thing,
real quick, Well, before you do, let me respond. Now you're moving on to Trump.
Part of my issue is that you do jump between these. But I want to mention the Trump thing because I don't think we're going to get to it afterwards. But my understanding of the Trump obstruction of justice is that he was requested to return these documents, and then he refused to return them, right? So
Hillary Clinton's team was requested to hand over emails and then refused to do so. All of the documents that they requested for Trump eventually came back. The ones that were requested from Hillary didn't. The fact that you say, I don't think it's a crime because the FBI didn't charge them, when my argument is the FBI is engaged in a corrupt double standard, and your proof that she didn't commit a crime or her team didn't commit a crime is, but the FBI didn't charge it, is further evidence to me. It is blatant 100% that it is a clear case of obstruction of justice. What do you think would happen to you if the FBI or if Congress subpoenaed evidence from you and you destroyed it after you received the subpoena? Yes or no, do you think that's a crime?
Well, I don't know, and so this is kind of my whole thing. I think these are interesting questions, and I feel like most of us probably don't have a good, really solid understanding of all of the topics that we've touched on right here that quickly. And I think it would be more interesting, and you should do this more on your show. You should dive into the evidence regarding these things and actually explore. I've watched a bit of it, and it seems like you talk a lot, but I don't see you reading a lot of things about these things. And I appreciate the stuff you talk about. I find it interesting. I think you're an entertaining guy, but I'm really someone who is about learning. My whole meme is learning is radical. And I just really think I would really like to hear more substantive, educational pieces from you, because I think you're a smart guy, and I think that you could dive into these things really, in a really interesting way. And
I
think
have dived into these as they were occurring in real time. Like, maybe I'll dive into them again. I take your suggestions on what I should do with my channel with a huge grain of salt. And what frustrates me, it's very similar to the, I don't see evidence of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. You can't even admit basic truths. So I know that you're full of shit, and I'll explain why.
But I never argued against that.
Please, as you jump to, but Trump, under Trump, I'm not going to respond. Right? Like, as
I never mentioned Biden's cognitive. Well, I did, but
nonetheless, here's the point that I'm going to try to make. When you talked about Trump and you said, oh, the reason that they were charging him was because they requested stuff and that he didn't give it back. And that's why. And I'm like, yeah, but Hillary's team did the same thing, right? In fact, they never did get it back. And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, so isn't that a crime? And your answer is, I don't know. So you already said that you think it's a crime when Trump did it, but when Hillary does it, even her team does it even more blatantly, you're like, well, I don't know if that's a crime. That's how I know that
I think she might have done it more blatantly.
Please let me finish. So that's how I know you're full of shit. And so it's not worth for me to sit here because as I go through it, like you're going to be like, just like furiously Google searching any out that you can, and you're going to be like, well, there's exceptions. It is blatant. They got a subpoena. They deleted the subpoenaed evidence. That doesn't mean Hillary ordered it, but someone on Hillary's team did that. The FBI knew that it was this guy, Paul Gambetta. They knew it, and they said, well, instead of charging him, we thought it would be a long, drawn-out legal battle. So what we did instead was offer him immunity. And then he said, guess what? I did it all myself. I had an oh shit moment. I remembered 6 months ago, Hillary's team told me to delete evidence, and I forgot to. So then I knowingly committed a felony by having an oh shit moment after they were subpoenaed and deleting them. And then the FBI said, but you met with Hillary's top attorney, Susan Mills, like 2 days before you deleted it. What was that conversation about? And you know what Paul Gambetta said? I don't remember. And the FBI said, good enough for us, all wrapped up in a nice neat bow.
We have to take Rob's word for all of this stuff. Like, he's narrativizing so hard about all this. And I doubt anyone on the panel actually knows all the facts about the things he just fired off, right? And Rob himself, I would assert, or I would suspect rather. So yeah, I really think that's a thing to take away. If you're a fan of Rob, what I encourage you to do is like slow down his stuff and like just really go point by point and explore it yourself. Like I'm trying to do this more. I'm trying to slow down and explore this stuff because I think it's really important to take our time when all this stuff's happening.
How about this?
And I got a list of 20 off so fast, you know.
I got a list of 20 things here. How about me and you? We'll set up debates on each and every one of them. We'll go 4 hours through each single one. How about that?
I would love that, Rob. I think
let's set it up. I'll be happy to do it, and I will guarantee as we painstakingly go through it, and you're forced to admit that everything I said is true. You're going to be like, yeah, but
maybe.
We'll see.
Well, I guess we'll find out when we do. I'll reach out to you on Discord, Rob. We'll talk about it.
Sounds good.
I'm happy to set it up. Ryan, you got 15 backstage, and your mic.
I'm probably just gonna bounce.
Okay, your mic though, I don't know if it's like too loud or something, but it is peaking out. I tried to hit you in the private chat. I didn't want to interrupt. It's okay. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but just so you know. All right, say goodbye, Ryan.
Nice seeing you,
Bye, everyone. Take care. Yeah, you too, bye.
Bye. And if you'll all just allow me to get through a few super chats and do some logistics.
I'm gonna go to the restroom. I'll be right back.
Sure, take your time. The gauntlet is officially open, and I will be redirecting you all over to there here in just a few minutes. But if you want to get ahead of the raid to the other channel, just go ahead. The mods will be dropping the link in the chat. Thank you, Uncle Guns. I appreciate you. Okay, so we got a lot to get through. Harbargnar with the Big 10. Out of all these lefties ganging up on Rob, Soy Pill is the only one of higher caliber intellect, referring to Soy's debate with Andrew. I still think he lost that one. Yeah, I do think, I do agree. I think Soy is a very intelligent young man, and I think he's got a lot of uphill battles ahead of him. But I do find that he is quite smart, and I think he will make his way through. Jess Gerald, of course, thank you to you. JC was put in the back and solidified with the big 20. So much so, JC actually left. If he wants to come back later, he can. I think that time has run out. Cool B1C with the big 5, who steals my content all the time. I don't appreciate it. Jumping on the screen every 10 minutes to say 2 words is not going against the stealing content rule. Now that we've seen the panel, which one was the good looking one? And to my reference, I was referring to Soy Pill, of course. And Chuck
Evan.
with the big 10. Evan just sits here so quietly. He knows it. Chuck with the Big 10, Ryan and his soy 5, each 5 in the back to think about it. Of course, that happened during the, I think everybody's been removed at this point. JB with the Big 2, Rob gives Vizzini from The Princess Bride vibes.
Inconceivable. Yeah, I do sound like that guy. It's true.
I see Spin with the Big 2, Raid from, I believe it's the Drunk Debunk show. Thank you for the raid. We appreciate that. Evan Lord sends a big 5. Soy proved he had the low integrity and that can alienate honorable people like Rob. Lying to someone and publicly mocking them is very dishonorable. Rob, you're welcome to chime in a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean that's all. Soy seems like a likable enough guy, and someday I'll probably. Again, I didn't even remember that was the dude. I talked to him the other day on your show after he did a panel with Rachel Wilson. I didn't remember it, but that sort of thing pisses me off, especially because I was so excited to talk to someone that I was like that Spicoli guy. I know people were probably like, "Wow, he's droning on." I actually like that. I like someone that's like, "Hey, I got some fucking criticisms of Trump, but guess what? I offer those criticisms to anyone, regardless of party." I like talking to people like that, so I was so excited to talk to him over that. I was like, wow, this is going to be a good discussion. I can't wait to do it. And then him for right off the gate to be like, oh, I faked that fucking tweet, ha ha. And then expect me to what? Sit there like a bitch? I don't need Soy. I don't need him. Like, I don't need his audience. I wish them all well. I hope they do come watch me, but I don't need that shit. I'm not going to be bitched out in that sort of way. Kiss my ass. And the fact that the moderator Wick wanted to make a big man moment out of it, he can kiss my ass too. But I do wish them both well. I have no personal animosity towards them, hoping that they get banned or that they have unsuccessful lives. So he looks like a happy guy. He seems decent. I wish him nothing but the happiness. But until I choose on a whim to want to talk to him one-on-one again, he can go fuck himself. That's how I feel about it.
I think that's fair.
I still want to throw it in there. Sorry, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Buck.
If you don't mind, I mean, I still think that Soy is. He might have been catfishing you on that to engage with you, but honestly, like when I look at people like Soy Pill, I want to engage with his audience, right? I can engage with my audience, and they're gonna love everything I say. I want to engage with the people that do not love what I say. And that's why when I originally spoke up, I'm like, hey, give this guy a chance. I've been on panels with him before. He's been pretty good faith. I'm not as big as you are, right? So like he tried to get a response out of you. What?
I said, I'm trying to lose weight, you know?
Yeah.
But no,
I'm just saying.
I know what you're saying.
I'm just saying. You want to talk to that audience, not your audience.
I don't give it. I'll talk to that audience. I don't want to talk to Soy. Let me say this, Vibe. Let me put it in a way that maybe you'll understand. When you go on Tinder and you get the big-breasted blonde that you're going out to dinner with, and it turns out that it's a 60-year-old fat old man, right? You might really want to talk to that fat old man's friends, but I don't. Fuck them. They catfish me. Hit the bricks.
That's fair. Yeah, and Harbar with another 5 to say, I didn't even know about this prior, so I tricked Rob in bad faith. Apologize for assuming he was a good faith actor. Do you think that that's like something that you would say as a full-on character? I mean, would you hold it? I mean, obviously you're holding it against him all the way, but would you believe that that's something he would do all the time?
Yeah, I have no reason to trust him, just like I wouldn't have reason to trust someone who steals from me to let them back in my house. Now, I'll be honest with you, eventually, and probably not that long from now, I'll be like, shit, yeah, I'll talk to Soy again. But it'll be at my whim, and I'm never going to believe when he says, well, my motivations are X, Y, and Z. I don't believe you. I just don't. So I'll choose to talk to him when I feel like it, but I don't need him. I hope his audience can appreciate that I'm not wishing ill on him or not wishing ill on them. I would be happy for them to hear the things I have to say, but there are plenty of other left-wing streamers just as interesting who haven't engaged in bad faith in that level, and I'll talk to them instead. Eventually I'll let it go, but I choose not to.
I didn't even see what Soy did. I didn't know what he was doing that was dirty to.
I will sum it up in 30 seconds. Trump had a tweet where he quoted Napoleon and said, if you're saving the country, then you can't break the law. A bunch of lefties that I've interacted with over and over again on X was like, see, Trump, what do you think about this, Rob? What do you think about this? I said, screw you people. You didn't care when Biden operated above the law, so I'm not going to listen to you complain about Trump's mean tweets. If someone could show me that they were actually talking about potential law breaking under Biden, then I'll talk to them about my honest opinion opinion about Trump's mean tweet here. No one was able to do that. They just kept screaming, whataboutism. Soy came in and basically was like, yeah, here, I did criticize. I said, that sounds awesome. Can't wait to talk to you. He said, I'm on the panel with you tomorrow. Let's talk about it then. I went on the panel, said, thank you so much, Soy. Really appreciate that you're the kind of person that's a Democrat, but you did call out your side. He said, haha, I didn't. I F12'd and made that fake tweet. Haha, how about that? I said, go fuck yourself. I don't want to talk to you. And I'm sorry for swearing so much, Sarah. I'm going to cut it back. I'm sorry.
Stop fucking cussing, Rob.
That's it. That's the best I can explain it without relitigating the whole thing all night.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, especially if if you're coming to engage in good faith and then somebody kind of blindsides you like that. I think that's fair. Speedy Lee with the Big Ten, the machine of bureaucratic democracy is on a path to destroy all that is sacred. A bad king would be easier to overthrow than this nightmare. Any thoughts to that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the bureaucracy is the problem. It's the unelected people, right? And that's where the power base is. If you want an example of this, the first bullshit impeachment of Trump, right, where you had all these people from the State Department, and they kept saying over and over while they were testifying in that impeachment, Trump went against our foreign policy. Now, Trump is the elected leader of the executive branch. He actually sets the foreign policy. People voted for his vision, and yet these people that are underneath him and are supposed to listen to Trump to set the agenda were like, no. We don't like the fact that Trump is going against our agenda. And that's the truth. These people, any politician that said, that's why I wasn't big on throw Hillary Clinton in jail. And I actually think that there's criticism to have of Trump that he ran on that promise. I don't mind vocalizing that I think that was bad, that he shouldn't have ran on that promise. Hillary will come and go. Trump will come and go. But the FBI is here to stay. State Department's here to stay. They're going to be here long after each of the politicians you see now are dead. They're going to be there after James Comey leaves and Chris Wray leaves and all the leaders of the FBI. So if they're putting their thumb on the scale and saying, actually, we know better than the American people and who they elected, that's a huge problem. And all the Democrats that talk about democracy, that's one of the most anti-democratic things I can imagine, because you have no voice whatsoever in controlling who these bureaucrats are. And we had Chuck Schumer that admitted when Trump won the election before he was sworn in, he admitted on Rachel Maddow's show, Trump can't criticize the FBI because they'll find 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at him. And that's exactly what's happened. And that should have scared the shit out of every Republican, Democrat, centrist in this country. Yet instead, the Democrats took the sort of Faustian bargain of saying, Orange Man bad, so that's okay. We'll defend the fact that the president can't criticize the agencies underneath him because they'll sabotage him. And that's what's happened ever since. And the Democrats are like, yay, Orange Man bad, it's okay. And I'm here to tell you, it's going to come for you or the people you support eventually. And when it happens, it'll be too late because you empowered these people. So you should be thankful that someone like Trump, with all of his foibles and flaws, which there are many, is actually the one that's directed at from these corrupt agencies so that you can see publicly beyond a shadow of a doubt now how political they actually are.
Beautiful. For the record, I'm shutting down the Raging Tomato side. You can ride the raid over to the Gauntlet, or you can just simply click on the link now and head on over. Same show, different channel. That's all. We're just cutting things in half and moving in a smarter way. All right. So I'm going to